Observer's Log. We are taking it to January 3rd, 1993. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Star Trek from 60,000 Light Years. I am one of your hosts, Jason Clark, J Clark 787. The other here, my good friend, Eric Berry, better known as Trekkie B47. We are taking that 60,000 light year view of every series here in Trek. And you've read the title correctly. This month we are on Deep Space Nine.
We're traveling through the wormhole. We're taking a runabout into the Gamma Quadrant. Let's go. Let's do this.
I had to come properly dressed.
Yes, yes.
Spoiler alert! Because it frames everything. It's the underlying frame of everything we're going to get into today.
Yes.
Deep Space Nine is my favorite. I think, in my opinion, it is the pinnacle of Trek. Like, for a variety of reasons, some we will discuss here today. Others will come at a further away episode. But yeah, it's just as much as TOS and TNG built the house. I think Deep Space Nine just comes in as like, let's grow up a little bit.
Yeah.
And let's put some childish things away and be adults in the room for a second. But let me ask you first, so I just don't ramble on
Sure,
and on.
no.
How do you feel about the series? Your encounter with it?
So, like you said, this started in 1993. I was 11. We didn't move up here to the Chicago area from Georgia because I'm originally from Georgia. We moved in the summer of 93. So, I'll be honest, the first few seasons, like the first, I want to say 3 seasons, were off my radar when they initially aired because it was syndicated. It kind of bounced around a little bit in the Chicago market before it settled on WGN here. So I actually really got into it freshman year of high school because I had a couple friends. We got into an argument about, or not argument, but a discussion because at the same time, Babylon 5 was, and we'll get into that, was airing at the same time. And one of my friends really liked Babylon 5 and was accusing Deep Space Nine of stealing some of its momentum. And I knew of Deep Space Nine, like in general, but I didn't watch much of it up until that freshman year of high school. And then that's when I made it an effort to like find out because by God, so that was like 95, 96. So by that time, like I was already deep into Voyager and Voyager was on UPN. For me, Deep Space Nine was on another channel. So it wasn't like they were cross promoting each other at all. So when I saw the premiere of Voyager in 95, when they stopped off on Deep Space Nine, I was like, wait, what? What is this? And then I think about, like, I found some, like, Playmates figures in the store or something. So I had just only known a little bit about Deep Space Nine. And I couldn't defend it against Babylon 5 because I had never seen it. I'm like, I made it a point from there on, I need to seek out Deep Space Nine. And so, I cracked open the TV guide. And
man.
This is 1996. Like, come on, 95, 96. Internet was very early on. But I did find Deep Space Nine. So I got into it, during the 4th season. And that's when Worf shows up. And so I was like, wait, Worf is here. And it just like blew my mind because I knew him from TNG. And so that's how I got sucked into it. Particularly, I'm glad I got sucked into it when I did, because I think seasons 4 through 7 are like perfect Star Trek. I know. But eventually, because of Netflix and because of syndication itself, they would air more reruns. So eventually I filled in that season 1 through 3 gap. And then, over the years, I've done a couple Deep Space Nine rewatches, and I did one with Teresa as well, maybe a year and a half ago. So I that's how I started with Deep Space Nine. I love it. It's very hard to rank all these Star Treks because I think they're all. I know we will, but it's so hard because sometimes I'm like, damn, Deep Space Nine is just so good.
I love how you talked about your entry because in a way it's similar to like what like of course it's all the Cisco being the black cap. Oh, we're gonna get on it.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is one as I talked about in our intro episodes. If you haven't seen those, you can go check it out. Of course, Trek. Me and my dad. This is I'm 7 at the time. Yeah, 6 coming into 7. So I'm at that good young age, finally recognizing, watching, hearing him watch the episodes or record the episodes, tell me about the next morning. But then of course, just because of life, I didn't see all the episodes. So to me,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost kind of like growing up because it's like, yeah, for me, it's Deep Space Nine, knowing the story, seeing what I've seen, but knowing I haven't seen all the episodes, kind of like TNG, but with Deep Space Nine, that's more important than TNG because of the episodic nature.
Right.
So then, of course, with cable in the late '90s, you get the boxes with the on demand. On demand starts to become the thing, and so
Yep.
with deals, you'd get episodes up for a stretch at a time, and so I'd fill in a couple more holes there, but of course, because of life, didn't get to see them all. And then because of the magic of the internet in the 2000s and finding things, I was able to see everything, but
Right.
that was on a laptop screen. And so when I met my wife, one of the things we did early on in our relationship before being married, just one of the
Mm-hmm.
reasons how I knew she was the one was we did a Deep Space Nine watch because she was a Trek fan, but had never watched Deep Space Nine. And yes, due to the magic of Netflix, made it real easy. So it literally wasn't until
Mm-hmm.
2014 that I saw all of Deep Space Nine on TV.
Yeah.
like at that point, I could finally say, "Yep, I've seen every episode actually on television." And yeah, for a variety of reasons we're gonna get into, it is the best Trek out there. Let's jump into it. First things first.
Yes.
The premise. So the premise of the show. The premise is the big difference. I guess the gamble they took upon with essentially TOS and TNG being wagon train to the stars, and TNG literally just kind of being a revamp of TOS, but bigger, better, faster, more advanced. Same premise in those shows
Mm-hmm.
and episodic nature. DS9 essentially we get where they were the wagon train. This was described as the rifleman. This is the outpost. This is the place where everybody comes into. And as
Mm-hmm.
Eric kind of alluded to, Deep Space Nine is a station orbiting Bajor, where they discover the wormhole in the plot, and that's where the action is taking place. It's not going out. We're not
The
traveling into the
action is coming
stars.
to them.
We are in the midst of it as it circles around, which I think just because of what it became, you couldn't do episodic with that. There's no way this show would work if done episodic just based off the premise alone.
Right. And what I like about the early seasons, which we'll get into, they start planting the seeds of what grows throughout the series. And one of the things that I really love about this show is just how many secondary characters there are that become almost as important as the main characters. And it truly is a great show. It really is.
What we've talked about so far through our previous Trek talks with the movies TNG, TOS, and how Trek at this point has already begun referencing itself, things in the
Hmm.
past that happened, things you've seen before it happened, characters is going to say all that stuff we've talked about. Deep Space Nine just hammers in on, but literally like covers it all across the series. You get the courtroom episodes, the time travel episodes,
The
the
holodeck
the holodeck,
episodes.
the guest appearances, the bat, like literally everything you could want in Trek is encountered in this show in
Hmm.
some way, shape, or form. And I think just the way it connected everything is just like wow, it really expands the universe in a way that I think sets things up
Hmm.
going forward that we're experiencing now to an extent.
Yes, and not only an expansion of what we know, but also a deepening of
Mm.
what we already know. And you have writers and executive producers, um, like God, Stephen Ira Bear, who is all over. And for anyone who has not watched What We Left Behind documentary,
Oh,
you need
ooh.
to put that on the top of your list. I crowdfunded. I helped. crowdfund that thing. Like my name is on that poster somewhere that I got that they made. Like it's phenomenal. And God, why am I blanking on his name?
Michael Pillar, Rick Berman.
No, 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 no. Battlestar Galactica reboot. Why am I blanking on the guy's name? Ronald Moore.
There you yeah.
Ronald Moore was
Ronald D. Moore, as we
Ronald
see.
D. Moore. No, and how influential he was in crafting like the stories, like what they did in like that what we what we left behind documentary with the season 8 was phenomenal. But you get a sense of that all these writers were coming together and pitching these incredible stories, which you're right, it was episodic to start, but then it became serialized. Like you could not miss a show, especially those later seasons.
Definitely, there are some arcs where it's like, there are certain chunk. There are three major chunks where it's like, you can't miss an episode. But what I've found lately in some, just because Deep Space Nine is one I turn on always if it's on Pluto or whatever. Even as serialized as the show is, it is still very episodic.
Yes,
It is
yes,
still, the way it. This is how I believe Trek needs to be done. Like it is these overarching arcs and themes, which we will get into in a second, but it is the way that the show still found a way to be episodic. So you still get those episodes, because believe me, there are those episodes was like, filler jump. I can pass. That's not my favorite. If I see that one on, I might go to something else. Like, but it's also got those hard hitting, like it's got it all, and I really think it is the formula for what Trek needs today, but that's for another episode. Let's dive into the cast of Deep Space Nine. Well, the biggest thing as we get into Deep Space Nine, which we will talk about because of the way it's set up, is conflict is the biggest thing that has allowed this in this show that we have not seen in any other show, is because Gene has gone to glory. He signed off on the show, but the biggest thing is they're like, hey, Gene is gone. We can have conflict. So kind of what you started to see a little bit later on in TNG, you're getting in a much more raw and straight way from episode 1 here, starring Avery Brooks as Commander Captain Benjamin Sisko, Renee Ajabrawan as Constable Odo, Alexander Siddiq as Dr. Julian Bashir, Terry Farrell, Lieutenant Jadzia Dax, Cole Meany, who we've seen before, as Chief Miles O'Brien, Nana Visitor as Major Kira Nerys, Eric Lofton as Jake Sisko, and then Armin Shimmerman as Quark. That's your main
main cast, yes.
The crew, as we could say.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with this first, which is probably not what people expect. What we talked about, what Star Trek does with women, Deep Space Nine knocks it out the effing park. As much as like Uhura was a thing for TOS. Yes, they do better with Deanna Troi and Crusher in TNG, but it's not quite there. Jadzia Dax and Kira Nerys are probably two of the most feminist, strongest characters we've ever seen in television. And this is early 90s here. This is 93.
Right.
Like, these are two of the strongest women you will ever see on the screen and play major parts in this series.
and later, we get Lita, very beautiful woman, but she's smart, she's educated, she's cunning, and she becomes like a major part towards the end. So every female character that they introduce, even the villains, even some of the female villains, like
Moogie, a Ferengi, Moogie, a character you would think be disrespected every 9 way between here and hell, is in her own right redefines an empire, an association. Like,
oh my God, there's so much about Deep Space Nine. I mean, all the alien races that we get to explore, the conflicts between the Maquis that was hinted early on with the Cardassians towards the end of TNG. Like, everything was built upon those last couple seasons of TNG. And we even got like a crossover with TNG, which was nuts.
Not crossover, but yeah. That was a little funky. But the magic. Deep Space Nine is on air for about just under, because in its second season, I think that TNG And so they share just about 2 seasons of kind of a crossover. And yeah, you see that inflection, that influence, even at this time when nothing like it's subtle between the two, but it still happens because of course, we'll get to it in
And
deeper detail. It's like Picard showing up and doing the whole torch passing, in the kickoff for the show. But yeah,
and
this yeah.
and this series was the first series to always have another Star Trek series airing with it throughout its entire
It had
run.
it had half of season 4, I think, to itself. Because Voyager also aired in
That
January.
little gap, yeah,
So
but
yeah, half of season 4 was by itself, but then come
that
January,
was it. But
yeah,
most of the entire run, it had like another Star Trek show next to it, which was crazy because after D Space Nine ended, Voyager was alone, Enterprise was alone, until we got Discovery, which was alone until we got the spinoff. So, yeah, and I think that kind of made D Space Nine kind of an underdog in some ways
it
because
never got the support it needed. Because the
no,
focus being, TNG was the focus, and then as you mentioned, you got Voyager coming up, and
which was launching its own whole own
whole
network.
network, and Voyager is the one to kind of bring it back because yeah, Deep Space Nine does has. I would honestly say, it's only in the last 10 years, kind of, that Deep Space Nine has truly gotten the respect it deserves
Mm-hmm.
in Trek, and that's because of Netflix and streaming and people being able to dive in and see the story. And that's how we're used to consuming television now, more so because that's what I was like. Serialization was not a thing then. Like this was
Right.
a Deep Space Nine was a gamble, and
And we've kind of talked about that. That's kind of a theme, like with TOS and TNG, and now D Space Nine. There's always this risk of like, is this even going to work? And somehow they make it work. And I feel like because D Space Nine was using that same syndication formula that TNG was,
yep,
they were able to take more risks, especially because they weren't shackled by Gene Roddenberry. Not to say that he was like a hindrance on anything, but the way storytelling needed to evolve on television and how that was evolving throughout all of television, like it was just good timing in a sense that now they had a team that could experiment.
yeah, and again, like this is Star Trek doing something that TV shows don't do. Like, yeah, so at this point, TNG is no longer all that special in being essentially a reboot or the next edition of a show because now you've had things like Saved by the Bell, New Class, and yeah, all some of these
Mm-hmm.
80 shows which have kind of gotten they redo,
Right.
they don't hit the same. So TNG is separate in that its own success. But here you have essentially a reboot spinoff now getting its own spinoff. Like it's that next level that other shows aren't doing at this point in time. And even to this day, many shows don't get to that. Oh yeah, it's only now we've seen some shows get to that. Oh yeah, this is the third branch of this show or the fourth branch of this show. I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
Power or the Western thing that Paramount has also, the 1803 and all that.
Right,
You
right, yeah,
kind of
yeah.
got these multiple versions in this universe, but at this time that wasn't being done. That wasn't being done.
And it was, I think it was great because you still have all that lore of TOS and TNG behind you to support this universe. And we'll get into it, but you get episodes like Trial and Tribulations that could not happen any other way for any other show.
The way Deep Space Nine plays with Trek, again,
Yes.
it's like there is a love and a care because this is really Deep Space Nine is the one that now starts to show. Okay, this is a really becomes a really layered universe. Like, oh, it's not just the Enterprise and its adventures, and then we had the new Enterprise and its new crew and adventures. Now we're now at the same time knowing that there's other people, other things shaking in the world, other experiences, and we start to okay, this happened here, this happened here. You start to filling in some more gaps and stuff, and so now this is where we really start to get into. And Trekkies, we're already nerdy about this, we already anal about this, but
Oh
really,
yeah.
how does this work? How does this fit in? Can this happen? Like this really, I think, like it gives fuel to the fire for that movement, which has exploded across any fandom nowadays.
And that's why one of the things I love about how D Space Nine started was we already had a familiar character in O'Brien. So there was already one connection that was carrying over. Now he was a main character. He's not just some transporter chief, he's the engineer. And then
Right.
we have that again when they introduce Worf into the series. And suddenly you're like, wait, he's not just a guest star for this two-parter. He's
He's staying
in the
alive.
main cast for the rest of the show. And it's, to me, that just feels like D Space Nine was really expanding upon the universe.
Okay. Before this engine is revving, before it gets out the gate,
I know.
you mentioned it earlier. We have to talk about because they're part the cast, not the main cast. Well, the main cast is great. It's one of the great, like, yes, the whole, okay, before we get to the recurring. Yeah, you gotta love Cisco. Like, Cisco is my captain. This is an early era of the 90s as a child, seeing a black man in this role. I came properly dressed. This is what I wear most of the time. He influenced my facial hair for the most part. It's just,
when the best Cisco is bald bearded Cisco.
Yeah.
Best
Bald
Cisco. There's a weird transition where he had the hair and the beard. We don't really talk about that.
It was like 2 episodes. It was 2
Like 2 episodes. It was 2
That
episodes.
was better than just hair Cisco, though. Hair Cisco was weird. I get why they did it to try and different. He came from, an 80s era with, Spencer for Hire and A Man Called Hawk. I get that. But
man,
Cisco,
there's something about bald-headed, goatee Cisco. He's the goat. He's the best.
We don't play no games, and we'll get into why when we get to those episodes. But yeah, early 90s to have a strong black man figure like that who, my father loved that. So, of course,
and a single father.
Single father. So, of course, it's the father-son relationship. For me now, as I have switched, it's interesting. Like, oh, yeah, it's a great watch. It's just like, that's one of the reasons why this show was special. Was like, yeah. And at being younger, it's like, yeah, that's my dad. We do these adventures. It becomes that kind of thing. And so, that, and also Avery Brooks being the best, I think, mix of in both portraying Cisco of Kirk and Picard, but also Patrick Stewart and Kirk in his performances. Shatner in his performances going over the top, which we will get into when those moments happen. Avery Brooks is a beast. I wish he'd give more to Trek, but he feels like he gave it all. I understand.
I know. I respect him and his private life, wherever and whatever he's doing. I wish him the best. But yeah, I think he gave it all to Star Trek. And I will say, just like a side note, if you want more Cisco, you need to read the Star Trek comics that are out now. It's all Cisco focus. It deals with him coming back from the prophets and all that stuff. And I read it and I can just hear Avery Brooks delivering these lines when I read it. And it's like it's great. I'm considering those canon, so take that what you will. That's probably the only way we're going to get more Cisco.
We'll talk about that. That's
Sure.
That's going to come up in another episode.
Okay.
But anyways, the recurring cast here is the strong, like, Deep Space Nine. This is me taking my all-hearted, you're not this the goat of all time out of it. Deep Space Nine's recurring cast is the best of Star Trek, simply because of what they were able to do and how influential that they became more than just recurring cast, especially, like that last season and those arcs they had. Like these were characters that were fully developed, fully given stories, fully given like personalities and depth, that the matchups that they played with them and the main crew, the way they chefed it up all season, is you're not getting that in any other series. We're talking Marco Limo as Gul Dukat, Aaron Eisenberg as Nam, Max Grodenchik as Rom, Andrew Robinson as Garrick, who literally would become main cast at some point, Louise Fletcher as Kywin, Penny Johnson as Cassidy H, Chase Masterson, as you mentioned earlier, as Lita, Robert O'Reilly. We're getting a lot of Gowron. You're getting Jeffrey Combs, who might just be Mr. Star Trek. as Brunt and Wayoon,
Love it.
KG Hertzler as Martok, Casey Briggs DeMar, Barry Jenner, William Ross, James Darren as Vic Fontaine, and Rosalind Chow as Keiko O'Brien. They're literally main characters part two.
Yes. Yeah. And God, they had so many like great guest stars.
On top of it, on top of that,
On top of all that, yeah, it's a fantastic cast, and not just main. The recurring characters are just as important. I mean, you had Morn in practically every episode and never said a word. And there was a whole episode about his death, quote unquote. Like it's such a great, unique show. And the only reason they could do this was because I think of the premise of the show. Because everyone's in one place, it's like a town in space. And so you're gonna have, the store owners, you're gonna have, the crazy side characters, you're gonna have all these people that help function of the ship, and because they're living their whole lives in this one place. And you could only do that with this show.
With I would think you could call the most developed main cast of all Star Trek, just because of some of the conflict and drama and relationship time you got to spend with them. And also vice versa with the recurring. It's one of the most developed recurring casts ever, simply because they did. Deep Space Nine was no stranger to just throwing at you random pairings sometimes, but it would lead to awesome stories. You'd be like, "Oh, this is new," and you'd be like, "Wow." Some incredible matchups. You had your pairings off like any other good show will give you.
Absolutely.
Some of those random pairings that you only got here or there would open up even death even more so. Okay, let's get into the show. It is time. Deep Space Nine, 7 seasons as TNG, 176 episodes total over those 7 seasons. I'm conflicted on trying to wait for a certain couple of episodes throughout the run, because I want to put this here.
Okay.
As we get into it, it's no stranger to anybody that a lot of the episodes in all of Star Trek top 10 lists you'll find a lot of them come from TNG and TOS. It's generally a mixture of the same 3 to 5 episodes, depending on who's picking, you'll find. But I want it to be known also, if you really look at those lists as well, a good 3 or 4 of them are Deep Space Nine as well.
Yeah.
Out of everybody's top 10, on average, you're getting between 3 to 4 DS9, 3 to 4 TNG, 3 to 4 TOS. You're generally not finding any other Star Trek series with a top 10 episode all time.
That's sad, because I really love Voyager and Enterprise, but yeah, but I get it.
I'm not gonna lie, the top 10 of Star Trek, the ones that like I said, it's a good 15 across these 3 shows.
Yeah.
That you'll see rotated within, and it's generally not until like 13 that you generally find a Voyager generally pops up or something.
Right.
I would argue that the weight of Deep Space Nine's average of 3, it's a good 4, is some of the heaviest Trek that we are going to get into and hold special places. We'll get into when we get to the seasons. But overall, as we get into Deep Space Nine, like, as much as I love it, it brings its own weight to the table. It's not something that's like, you gotta love it. Like, come on, give it a chance. No, like you watch it, very few people I really hear hate it.
Yeah, there are definitely, and I know which episodes you're talking about, and it's because it's not just Star Trek top 10. Sometimes it's
TV
of all
top 10,
TV
sci-fi top 10.
Yeah.
We'll get to those. They hold special places. They're separate enough. We'll get to those. Okay, so as we get into it, it's the first Star Trek show to use CGI.
Yes.
When we get to season 3 and you get to define, but you have the mod Deep Space Nine. Once again, is a beautiful model. Like whoever bought it at the Christie auction, I want to see it in person. Like that. That is once again physical, beautiful. The depth and scale.
Funny story about that. I think it was it must have been the early 2000s. they had like a Star Trek
The documentary
exhibit.
about the auction.
No, no, no. They had like a touring exhibit because I remember
Um,
seeing the D Space Nine physical model in person,
I'm envious.
and it's large.
Oh,
It is
I remember
massive.
that auction video
Yeah,
when they got to that box. It's like, oh my god, there's only one thing that's going to be, and yeah, it was
yeah.
huge.
Love the station. What a fantastic design.
Uh, Beautiful. It's strange and alien. It's different. It is not TNG style. It is dark. It is gringy. It is dirty. It's not the same, L cars that we're used to seeing. It's something
Yeah.
else. It's something different, but it makes sense. It's a Bajoran state, or it's a Cardassian station outside of the planet Bajor, and now you're getting that Federation technology infused with it. Once again, setting a base for a variety of stories that don't just get rushed into.
And that we don't see in that we didn't never saw in
Yeah,
TOS or TNG.
right. Kicking off with season one, as many Star Trek shows, is kind of it's my favorite. I'm gonna keep it real. It's a little, but what's also crazy is it's still like it's as it is, it's still foundational and it still delivers
Hmm.
some substance. So kind of like you did with TNG. It was funny. I had because we didn't watch them all on the first run. So I was like, you just need to watch the important ones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's really when it comes to season one, there are two, which is of course the premiere emissary two-parter. With as you mentioned, you got the great kind of kickoff, the handling of the torch. Chief O'Brien, the Enterprise is Doc, so you're already seeing something familiar. You got Chief
Oh my God.
O'Brien, transferring to the station. You got Picard and Cisco clashing because Cisco ain't
So
messing with
good.
Picard because Picard killed his wife. That's Locutus. So it's just like something that yeah, at this point is a year and a half oldish, but already it's branching off from something major in Trek from
Hmm.
minute one because that's how the show starts is some of the battle of Wolf 359, which is something we had never seen
We
before,
never seen. Yeah.
never seen. And so yeah, it's emissary, and then of course duet, which is one of those ones in season one and in Star Trek
Yes.
period.
Yeah. Duet is God, it's such a good episode because you're getting the the entire conflict of Cardassia versus Bajor, and you're seeing all of that conflict distilled into one episode, and all the frustration and all of the tension, and Nana Visitor as Kira Nerys is, I mean, my God, she is just phenomenal in this whole show. And you have to look at it from a certain perspective. Like, she is a terrorist, and to have a terrorist as a main character, as like your second in command of the station, that opened up so many
And it's the
stories.
mid 90s too, so this is it's a pre 9/11 world. Things like this are kind of bubbling a little bit, but
Yeah,
of course the whole show is allegory for World War II, so it's kind of French terrorists a little bit, but
yeah, yeah,
yeah, she as much as we will talk about Avery Brooks giving a layered performance as Cisco, what Nana does with Keira Nerys is just as layered because throughout the series, yeah, she's
yeah.
bouncing throughout anger, grief, coming into her own as a woman, a leader, caregiver for her people, sexuality in terms of, she a strong woman, but she trying to find that boo, that man, soften, like the layer, she's just
Yeah.
as layered as a character as Ben Cisco was throughout her journey. And duet was is a high point of not just a season one, but its Trek period. Is one of those episodes because it's what we talked about with TOS. The way some scenes would just link like 10 minutes of just two characters going back and forth. Duet gives you some characters with those conversations between Kier and the killer and the like the way Deep Space Nine is dark and the questions they're asking and not giving you straight answers. You're just like, oh, whoa.
There are a lot of shades of gray throughout the entire show, and I mean, we'll get to it, but I think Garrick is one of those characters, and he is, my God. Andrew Robinson just played him fantastically. Like, we could literally do podcasts for every we could do episodes of a podcast for every one of these characters because there's that much to talk about. That's how layered D Space Nine is.
The, once again, because of the premise, and you're getting these constant interactions, it's not simply we're going to the new place. Oh, hey, we're people you've never seen before, or we were here 100 years ago, and how are things going? Oh, you got this problem, we fix it, we off. No, it's I don't like you today. You're not getting like, and it's not this ideal federation. Like you're getting the clash. It's not just all happy sunshine federation. It's hmm, we got some different ideals here. And while you would get some of that in TNG, sometimes with the Klingon episodes, at the end of the day, be all happy. But nah. We and you, we got to work together. We gonna see each other today, tomorrow.
Yes.
We gonna be on some missions.
Oh,
And because we're here,
yeah.
Gul Dukat is one of the greatest. And, and the way as a character he gets played in terms of sometimes once again that dynamic of I don't like you today, but we got to work together. You did me wrong, but we got to get along together today. The dynamic and like Star Trek, these shows are wishing for a Gul Dukat.
There's just so many multi-layered performances, but on top of that, it feels more real world because you have ongoing conflicts and there's that layer of like politics on top of all of this.
And religion. Politics and religion. It's
and
a
religion.
Nasty mix.
Right, especially on Thanksgiving. But but you've got the Federation, you've got Klingons, you've got the Romulans, you've got the Dominion, Ferengi, Cardassian, Bajor, Maquis. It's just layers on layers and layers, and this whole show made the entire Star Trek universe for me a little bit more grounded. It's not just seeing strange new worlds, because now the strange new people and worlds and politics and war and everything is on one location.
Yeah.
And it's so cool that you're seeing this moment in the Star Trek timeline happen, because here we are 24 years later and the Dominion War is still a talking point.
Repercussions. And
So, yep.
and as slow as season 1 is, whereas you could skip a lot of season 1 TNG and be okay throughout for the majority.
Sure.
As slow as season 1 is, it's still foundational that you can enjoy outside of the hop along home, because like literally it's
move along home.
Home. It is building a house, and
Yes,
season
yes.
season 1 is the foundation, not just foundational as a show foundational figuring itself out, which yes it does, but it is also building a house, and there are things that will have repercussions that affect things and will change dynamics of things further down the line that it's nice to know about, or nice to have seen that growth, because it's not in the way that we think of it as today. Like, oh, yep, episode 1, right into episode 2, right into 3, 4, 5, 6. No, it's sometimes 1. It might not get mentioned again till episode 7. Hell, it might not get mentioned again till season 3. Like, it's just it plays and drops as more real world and grounded as life is, simply because of the setting.
And that's why the season or the whole series works, is because of all these little pieces and all the the B plots, or like even just small conversations in the promenade or Quark's bar, like piece by piece, all of these relationships are building in a much more natural way than TNG.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so, because essentially episode 3 after the premiere, It's every happy crew. Every you get a little over getting to know
Right.
these characters over the first couple of episodes, but not in the literal way. Like this show is literally having character building moments. Like, oh yeah, we should talk and get
I
to know
mean,
one.
God, even, even the simple thing of Keiko trying to start a school
Yep.
and running into
Like,
I mean, that would have never been a thing on TNG because the school's already on the ship and it's a whole Federation crew. And here we go, we're off to the races. But my God, even something like trying to start a classroom on the station is a huge point.
Jesus, you bringing that up just literally made me think of how that episode is literally all about education and religion, and I'm just like, oh my god.
And
And this is like
right,
93.
yes, I know. I mean, uh,
Because
and this is what I mean. Like in the, I'll just say it right now. D Space Nine is woke. This is the wokest Star Trek that you'll ever woke on. The next morning. It's the wokest thing that Trek has ever done.
but
So
but not in a woke way where they're beating you over the head like woke, 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 woke,
yes,
woke. It is woke in the way that it's just these are who their characters. They have strongly developed and rooted characters, and it is all out of personality and backstory belief. This is how I interact with the world, and we see these things conflict. And they don't always give you as woke as it is. It's not woke in the here's the answer woke.
right, right, right.
Question woke.
But no, it's the woke in what the original meaning of woke is and supposed to be, not the using it
Yeah.
as a negative. And yeah, I mean the amount of, like you said, politics and religion, are not supposed to mix, but they work for the show because of the characters' backgrounds. Like the making Cisco the emissary,
Whoa.
and he doesn't want
He
it.
doesn't want it. He doesn't want it. It's a growth. Again, character growth. You had this thing he's sitting with, and and that thing is changed as we get down the road.
And the amount of times that him being emissary also conflicted with him as a Starfleet officer. The admirals were not
As
very
a man,
happy with Cisco many times.
literally, the ending of the show is the conflict of the emissaries and his desires as a man. But we'll get there. But yeah, that it's
But it's all laid in this season one.
yeah. The foundation is there, so
I
you can.
think it is one of the stronger season ones in Star Trek. Stronger. Because it's definitely stronger than TNG's first
Okay,
season.
I'll give you that.
I would
I'll give you
argue.
that. Okay, okay. It's
TOS is on its own thing because that was
yeah.
literally building Star Trek. But like if you compare like Voyager or even Enterprise, as much as I love those shows and all that, I think this is a strong, at least these first two seasons are a stronger start to a Star Trek series.
I hadn't really thought of it, and guess what? You just added to the ranking, sir. Okay, well, I'll let you have it.
Here
It's
we
okay.
go.
And this is me as a D Space Nine. Yeah, D Space Nine season 1 and 2 are a little bit of a slog, but it is so
Sure.
foundational. You can watch it knowing that these things are going to lead somewhere. It's not just slow for the sake of being slow. It's being very purposed. Season 2, what we get is the first Star Trek three-parter, and what will become a trend for Deep Space Nine. The further we get into, like I said, we get the first Star Trek three-parter period. You had part one and the part two,
Yeah.
menagerie, best of both worlds, unification, yada yada. Here we have season 2 opening with the homecoming, the circle, and the siege, which once again, sees a lot of conflict. You bring political strife within a
Hmm.
civilization. It's having its own political turmoil with some not wanting the Federation even here to help. And, so of course, now you get into questions of, it's not really prime directive, but how much do we insert ourselves? How much, and all this stuff flushing into some serious political drama.
Oh yeah, and to have a three-parter like this, was a I think a very strong way to kick off this particular season, and to go even deeper into the political dealings of Bajor. And it's I mean, to open up with a three-parter was pretty bold for the time.
Now, as slow as season 1 and 2 are, the back end of season 2 starts to pick up into gear, and you kind of get the sense of the world that it's built. We
Mm-hmm.
failed to mention in season 1, you do get a quick early appearance, I believe it's season 3, of Q and Vash. So C Space Nine starting to this trend of bringing back, well, I wouldn't call necessarily major characters. Hold Q. Q is his own thing, but a
Right.
character like Vash, why would she be on Deep Space Nine? You start to get this trend of Deep Space Nine kind of not necessarily digging too deep, but for the time, digging deep in the way it started to connect some Deep Space Nine, I mean, Star Trek lore, and you even get the great line as it tried to differentiate itself from TNG. Cisco telling Q, "I'm not Picard."
But he just straight up punches Q,
Right,
which
right,
I love, and it is the only time that Q is in D Space Nine.
yeah,
It's just that
yeah,
one episode.
yep. But it's enough. Hey, he appeared on it. He's there.
He's there.
But yeah, see, the back end of season 2 really starts to pick up. I'm
Hmm.
talking like see episode 14. You get whispers, which starts this trend of before there was promote Harry Kim. Poor Chief O'Brien,
Oh my
who would
god.
literally get a torture episode every season. And Whispers is the one that kind of starts it off. Poor
Yes.
Chief O'Brien.
I I feel so bad for Chief O'Brien, but um I mean we'll get into it, but I think he may be on the list for my engineer to knock off uh
Okay. Okay.
to knock off Scotty. So
It's a good
yeah.
tease. It's a good tease. Not bad. Chief O'Brien is certainly, when it comes to that engineer character, certainly
The amount
pulled
of
together
stuff that
stuff
he
like
had
I,
to
I
go through. Like the older I get, the more I empathize with Chief O'Brien, because I'm like, I know, man, work sucks. This is a slog.
work, work sucks. One, because of the environment.
Right, right.
Two, because of what you got to deal with it. Three,
Yeah.
you getting tortured at least once a year. Like traumatic experiences. The whole like
Oh
traumatic
my
experiences.
God.
And then you got your relationship with your wife, which is one of the most contested relationships across all of Star Trek. And the children that you eventually bring to this war zone. Oh my, like, yeah. A character arc that's just, and your best friend being a genetically engineered 20 something. Yeah, life is a little, life is a little rough. Of course, you get Paradise. Then you start. That's when with Cisco and O'Brien get stranded on a planet. You start to see some dark stuff. Like it's not just all pleasant on some of these
Right.
places. We're seeing some twisted places. You get what else I got on my list here? We got
Uh, Blood Oath.
next episode 19. You literally get the return of Kor, Kang, and Koloth in today's updated Klingon styling.
With the original actors. It's so incredible. And it was I loved that they made Jadzia because of Curzon Dex, because of her past symbiote. I love that there's this appreciation for Klingons. And
Mm-hmm.
I love, even before Worf showed up, I loved how much that they started to bring in the Klingons into this show.
Because of that character, yeah, for sure. People
And
who Blake
Blood
can't
Oath.
think.
And Blood Oath, I mean, this is one of the best
I mean,
season 2 episodes.
spoiler, we literally see the death of two classic characters.
Yep.
They kill them all.
They're not playing around here.
Right. like this might be one of the first episodes which literally because D Space Nine would have some hand-to-hand combat with we've probably seen more Batleth combat on Deep Space Nine than any other Star Trek show because they would go at it. And when they would go at it, yeah, they was going at it. They wasn't pulling those slices and dices. We're not getting blood and gore here, but for primetime television in the 90s, it's like, ooh,
We had some good action here.
Yeah, but yeah, the way to bring once again, you're going deep. You're not going mainstream. Oh, here we're bringing Kirk back. Oh,
Right.
they do that in a cool way later. We're not bringing as much as TNG brought back main characters. I think it needed to do that to establish that connection. Deep Space Nine was allowed to be like, oh, okay, yeah. Oh, let's grab this person here. Sure. Does it find a way to fit the story? 'Cause that's also the thing. It's not forced. It's like, yeah, it could have been any three Klingons, right? Doesn't matter. But the fact that you made it Kor, Kang, and Koloth,
Yeah,
it's like,
there.
oh, and that ability to deepen story for them, character for them. It's Deep Space
Yeah,
Nine.
uh, it's so good, and it's one of those things. It expands the Klingon culture. It expands the lore. You get these legacy characters from TOS, and we get to find out more about their lives. And it's not just that they all encountered Kirk at some point. It's these were three highly respected Klingons who became legends in their own empire, trying to like reclaim some of that glory
Yep.
because they were at the end of their lives. They were at, it just, it's really heartful storytelling.
And once again, very so fits in playing with these serialized trends and
Hmm.
the depths of the characters that it was allowed to do. Like, yeah, Jadzia has this past and the way it's connected, and we've seen this trend of her. It's a character trait, and it's very episodic. While this episode itself doesn't influence much in the future, it also does influence much of the future because now you've injected these character and especially Core, who survives, who would then go on to make appearances later. That we'll get to. So it's
And yeah, this really kicked off that other side of Jadzia that we didn't know about, and it added even more depth to her character because, of course, with being a Trill, and this is the first full time Trill that we have, we see the life experiences, and we get to see the repercussions of her past lives in multiple
oh yeah,
episodes of
yeah.
the show.
Once again, truly being able to play with the character's depth. Like, yeah, if this was truly episodic, that would have been one episode. That's it, done, and you're never hearing from it again.
But
It's
not,
easily what a
yeah,
good 4 or 5
yes,
specifically dealing with like, and that's not even necessarily counting the Curzon ones. I'm
right.
I'm I'm thinking of some of the other, which we'll get to, like specifically repercussions or decisions she's being faced because of past lives affecting encounters and experiences today. It's a couple episodes that goes into deepening characters that she's got inside of her. So people we've never even seen before. We've got
Hmm.
some better depth on than some characters in other places, which we'll get to at their proper time.
But in season two, another important episode that started from a concept in the original series that also has
Do it.
multiple
Do it.
repercussions, crossover. This
Episode
is the
23.
first time that we see the mirror universe. TNG never had a mirror universe episode. And it wasn't until crossover, which they bring back the concept of mirror mirror from the original series.
We are literally getting the world with the repercussions of Kirk,
Of another
of
universe
Prime Kirk challenging Mirror Spock that one man can make a difference. And now literally here we are at
a
this point,
hundred years later.
100
Yeah.
years in their future, 20 almost 25 in ours, seeing the repercussions of another universe. And that the way like Deep
And
Space
that became almost a yearly thing. We had our
Nine,
yearly mirror
couple,
universe episode.
couple tracks in there, what kind of dragging it out sometimes, but you know,
but
yeah.
but I think it was almost like its own mini arc. There's so
Yeah.
many like smaller arcs throughout D Space Nine.
It really portrayed life. Like life isn't, hey, I'm walking down the street, I meet person A at their house. Oh, hey, we have our adventure, and then I go further down the street and I meet another person or thing, and we have no life is I wake up in the same place, hopefully,
Right.
go to the same job
Hmm.
every day, see the same people every day. It's these encounters. And then sometimes, yeah, I only see a person once a month. Maybe I
Hmm.
only see a person twice a year. That's how life is. And so episodic doesn't really give you that life feature on a ship. And yeah, you would have to have a specific episode that showed you day to day.
Hmm.
But we really don't know much about some of the other characters' days. We got full fledged lives here on the station. Yeah, we're seeing them eat regularly at the bar or the commissary or a restaurant, picking up a snack, walking down the promenade, dinner in their quarters, conversations in their quarters, recreational time, whether it be on the little sports club thing that they got on the
Right.
holiday or the holodeck. Like we're seeing everyday life play out and how people flow in and out of their people's lives in this quadrant of space and the issues that they bring with them.
And I love, I mean, one of my favorite just relationships in all of Star Trek is the relationship between Benjamin Sisko and Jake Sisko, father and son. I've always loved that trope in movies. I mean, my favorite Indiana Jones is Last Crusade because it's a father son adventure. And, you know, Benjamin Sisko being a single father, raising a teenage son by himself, and teenagers going to do what teenagers do. And we literally see uh, the actor grow up
And they grew
with,
the character up with them.
and it's just so good. We're gonna say that phrase a lot. D Space Nine is just so good, and I love those little moments where Cisco is cooking, and he cooked. That was another thing, and we learned about his father, and it just goes on and on and on. I talk about this forever, but I love the little family moments, even when it's Keiko and Molly and Miles in their quarters, just all the family moments. This is a very family themed show, and but family, not just blood family, but like the family that we create.
Right. You can parallel Jake Sisko's character to Wesley Crusher. Wesley
Oh
doesn't get a
yes.
lot of development as a character.
Hmm.
We literally see and we see him to an extent grow up on screen as well. We literally see young teenage Jake Sisko into early manhood Jake Sisko, and the issues over his arc. Where yeah, early episodes, it's I'm trying to find a friend. Okay, I got my friend. We get into trouble, or our cultures are beefing in our relationships. Oh, now we're getting interested in girls. This is how I feel about it. This is how you feel about it. Oh, all of a sudden, this the path career you want to take. This the path. What do I want to do? What am I feeling? Oh, this is what I'm going down. I'm experiencing the world in some harrowing ways. Like picking a career, how that career plays with like the arc that we see this man. Like it's again, there is no character on Deep Space Nine besides maybe Keiko, because
A little
but
bit.
even
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
she does have another child.
Yeah.
But for the majority, 99% of the characters on Deep Space Nine, whether main or recurring, get an arc.
They
No
get at
show is hitting
least
at that kind of frequency now.
they get at least one arc, and you can't have another D Space Nine nowadays, which is unfortunate because we're not getting 26 episode seasons anymore of television. It's like 8, 10, or 12. That's it. Good luck. And it's like, I mean, we'll get into it. Like, there's some things I love about the newer shows, some things I don't.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But one of the things with D Space Nine is we had just 7 years of this show, and they had the breadth and the depth to expand these characters, and I feel like mostly everyone got a good amount of attention and growth.
Yeah, there is no for at least especially within the main cast, there is no this character got shorted for the most part. We
Right.
kind of frown on Miles' treatment because unfortunately a lot of his depth came from torture, but at least he still got a journey and some moment as well. But
Yeah.
like once again, like what Deep Space Nine is able to do some miraculous things as we continue to travel deep, but it's because it was able to breathe and build those the time. We're not compressing who knows how much story into 10 episodes. Like there's no way you could
Yeah,
do a Deep Space Nine in 10 episodes. Because even like I said, we just had the Mirror Universe introduction. We also get the two-parter with the Maquis. So literally, yes, on TNG, because remember at this point they're airing at the same time. We've had mention of the Maquis, but literally then here on Deep Space Nine, we get a two-parter to really understand who the Maquis are and what their issue are. And then between both, as we see, because you get Ro on Deep Space
right.
Nine, who was supposed to be Kira here, but because she didn't want to continue, you get Kira here. But you get to start to see that play between both the shows where, oh, this is affecting this in some circumstances, not necessarily vice versa until later, but
Right.
you start to get that play. So it's like, oh, the way they're telling story and starting to build the foundation. We get the introduction of the Jem'Hadar,
And
and
and I think this is like what, like right after TNG ended,
yes, yes,
because in the Jem'Hadar, another Galaxy class ship gets completely freaking obliterated, and you're like, wait, I'm so attached to this class of ship because of the Enterprise D, and these mofo's like took out a Galaxy class like it was nothing.
like it was nothing. And so, like, yeah, some things are being done on purpose because, like I said, Deep Space Nine doesn't get the love it deserves. It was kind of cast along a lot. And so you kind of get these shots, playful 90s television. Hell, it is what it is. And so finally, before we get out of season two, we have Tribunal, which is the directorial debut in Star Trek of Avery Brooks, kind of continuing that Jonathan
Yes.
Frakes tradition. He goes on to make a variety of direct, of appearances in the director's chair across the series. Some incredible episodes, and Tribunal being one of those. Just again,
Another Miles O'Brien torture episode.
two in one season. That is right. Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
It's just, yeah. Miles went through some things. Okay, so then on to season three. The big change is we get the Defiant. Production wise, because you need a ship. Because you
need a
had the
ship.
runabouts, but you had no real ship. So we get the Defiant. But in story wise, we get this ship because there's a threat of the Dominion. Once again, this building story, there's this threat out there. We don't quite know what it is. We've been getting pieces, the Jem'Hadar being a big piece. And it's like, okay, we need a ship because they blew up our Galaxy class one. We need something. And you get the Defiant in the Search Part 1 and the Search Part 2, which, because of some collaboration with the Romulans, they make an appearance, has a cloaking device. That's shit.
It's so good. It's so good. I love the Defiant. The Defiant is one of my favorite design ships, just because it's so against what came before it.
It's something we've never seen in terms of a ship in Star Trek. Again, it's
a
really only
Starfleet warship.
Right, created story-wise, created because of the threat of the Borg, as we saw in the attack of on Wolf 359, but was kind of had some issues with its power and distribution. So Cisco pulled some strings because hell, he worked on it to get it to Deep Space Nine. Like character development, backstory.
My only thing is, I wish they somehow brought Shelby back for this.
Right, because she did. Yeah, that would have been.
That would have been the cherry on top of the sundae.
Yeah, but we're dealing with 94 here, so understandably, and also for the first time right now. So season three for the first half of season three. Star Trek Deep Space Nine is the only Star Trek show on the air.
Yes.
TNG had its series finale in the spring. Voyager won't premiere till the spring, so January, winter. So for these 6 months, 5 months, it's all Deep Space Nine, but still doesn't get some of the love it deserves. But
it was. I'm looking at it, it's only 3 months. It was September to December. Yeah.
Yep. So not a long stretch.
the 10 episodes. This was the lone Star Trek for 10 episodes.
So you got the Search, Jonathan Frakes in the director's chair for his first Deep Space Nine, I believe, appearance with part 2 of the Search. We also
and not just directorial debut, but later in this season, in these first 10 episodes, we have
Defiance.
Thomas Riker.
Again, not going for the big apple on top. Though they teased you that
They did.
They did. And I remember promo because this is of course the days of 30
Shocking promos.
right. This week on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Commander William, right? That's all I visually remember there was that you would get, tonight at 8 or tomorrow it's,
Right.
oh, so yeah, they
This
tricked you
week.
thinking. They tricked you into thinking it was Will, but then you get Thomas and an interesting, pairing of him and Nana as Kira, the two of them on the Defiant Bridge, which is probably one of my favorite.
Think I need to do another D Space Nine rewatch. I love talking about this. It's season 3 is like when things are really heating up.
This is where start gets talk. This is where talking about Trek as a whole gets fun.
Mm-hmm.
As much as we love TOS and TNG from a 60,000 light year view, they kind of suck to talk about because one, they are so episodic, they're so foundational, everybody loves them. It's like they are what they are. We love them, but they are, from back here, they are
Right.
what they are.
Right.
Deep Space Nine is where you get some meat that carries over across the season. You got some things that people don't like. You really got it. Trek starts becoming divisive.
There are arguments online.
Yes.
I especially remember like on Star Trek bulletin board, like Trek BBS, when those like last few seasons of D Space Nine was highly divisive in the fandom.
Hell, we thought Soniqua got it bad, and I'm not saying she didn't, but imagine if Twitter was around.
Jesus,
Avery.
no, yeah,
because you were hearing complaints about it back then. Oh, black captain on Star Trek, black commander on Star Trek. What, like, that ain't Kirk, that ain't Picard. They changed it up.
yeah,
They changed it up. There are things that people hate about this show because it is very, as you put it, woke. You got Garrick, who at this point and who has said in interviews he was playing. I mean, Andrew Robinson playing Garrick so flamboyantly, so that they had to tell him, tone that down.
God, I love.
But it made
Garrick,
for some
though.
great
God,
that is a great character in the way that he describes it as playing this line of, yeah, Garrick is just down for whatever. And you never quite know if you can believe the things that comes out of his mouth. And it's just like, and the relationship with Bashir, not even like that relationship that people wanted, which was fulfilled in another show we'll talk about, but simply just the relationship of Bashir being this young character and kind of being
naive
and naive by Garrick, but then starts to learn him to the point where it's just like, yeah, okay, Garrick. Yeah, you my boy, Garrick. Yeah, is that what happened, Garrick? I could, and so once again, you see like the way these relationships will grow, and then of course, you got all the fandom wants and desires, which makes it, which opened things up for like Star Trek Deep Space Nine is so friggin' inclusive because it touched on like, and I love that even there are things that people would like to have been more front and present, and I get it. Andrew Robinson talks about how he wishes they could have pushed it further just like he would have wanted. I'm glad at least it was still there. Like Deep Space Nine really hits a spot for a lot of people in Star Trek because it didn't just present this.
Yes.
Even as diverse as Star Trek has been, this kind of white cultural front, it's Star Trek Deep Space Nine is very diverse just because of how it's set up.
And they're not just with Garrick, but the whole show, because of writers like Stephen Ira Bear, because of Ronald D. Moore, there's a layer of subtext to the show and double meaning, triple meaning.
Ooh.
To get around, censors and to get around, TV standards and practices at the time, there were so many things that you could infer and let your imagination go until the show confirmed it or they left it open.
Yep.
And that's why I think D Space Nine resonates with so many people, even more so now, like you mentioned, in the last 10 years because of streaming, because people are craving those long form storytelling. people love D Space Nine. There is a much bigger love and appreciation for D Space Nine that I see now than I did on the internet back then.
Because right now you're able to experience, or in this environment and realm, you're able
Hmm.
to experience Deep Space. The way you can experience Deep Space Nine is far different than how you have experienced Deep Space Nine. What today's streaming world doesn't change the way you watch TOS or TNG. Why? Because they were rerun the hell out of on television, marathons, whatever. So yeah,
God,
it wasn't a strange.
like I said in the TNG
Yeah,
episode, there were episodes growing up that I hated
yeah.
because they reran the
All
hell out of them.
it wasn't a strange thing, hell, New Year's Day, you would have the BBC Star Trek marathon and just run it all day. So it wasn't a strange thing to be able to watch episode after episode after episode after episode of these series. You couldn't control it, but you could still get that experience.
Hmm.
It wasn't until, like I said, 20 with Netflix popping up, the early 2010s, where it was like, oh, we got Deep Space Nine and we can rewatch it over and over and over again. And yes, it is very layered. It's a layering that yes gets appreciative on every rewatch. Two, and growing up, like watching Deep Space Nine as a kid is a very much so different experience than watching it as an adult. Is very much so, as much as I enjoyed battles as a kid, I enjoy the deeper levels and this stuff. It's like, and Deep Space Nine provides that. Like it is, as Andrew Robinson says about it, is very gray. It is not black or white, which is what TNG and TOS very
Hmm.
much so tried to portray. It is very gray, and it's just like, yeah, we'll show you how gray it can get. Oh, you think that's black? Let me show you how gray that is. Oh, you think that's white? Let me show you how gray that is, and let you sit with it.
And we see that really take to fruition in season three.
Well, what was unfortunately we didn't get here in time, not to date us, but a couple months ago, we had the anniversary of what was supposed to be past tense. And during these
Yes.
times, it's been like interesting with Deep Space Nine. It was like, oh, supposedly in history, the Bell riots were supposed to have occurred in 2024. We are now past that on the road to the 60th anniversary of this show.
Yes.
And so it was interesting because with the whole school thing, it's like, cause I was funny. I just watched, that episode just happened to be on Pluto the other day, and I was sitting there like, huh, huh, that don't sound too far fetched. Huh.
And past tense with the Bell riots, with what's going on today. Like when they mentioned 2024, like back then we're like, ain't gonna.
That's 30
That's
years
so
away. 30,
un.
30 years from now.
But here we are, and we're still dealing with some of the same problems. I mean, it may not be to that degree, but it feels like it.
It ain't so far fetched. It
Right,
ain't so
right.
far fetched.
And it's D Space Nine continues the legacy of what TOS and TNG did, where they predict certain things, but with D Space Nine, it's more of that more of the social commentary
Right.
that's like, wait a minute, these problems are still going to exist in our time.
And what's also interesting here is literally we see the opposite of Either Keyword's episode. Because there it was kind of the absent
City on the Edge of
city
Forever.
on the edge of forever. The solution was I need to abstain. I need to let history happen. Whereas in past tense, we literally see
We need to
Cisco being
get
Cisco.
involved.
Well, a motherfucker got to do what a motherfucker got to do and make some things happen.
Yeah, no, it's true. And oh my god. And
Okay, because we're not even in the good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, so yeah, as we end out season 3, you got Improbable Cause, you got The Die Is Cast, you got Explorers and Family Business. Family Explorers and Family Business are crucial because we get the introduction of Cassidy Yates, who will go who is quote unquote Cisco's girlfriend as a character,
right.
but is a developed character. And this is we get the mention of Cassidy Yates in Explorers, and then you get the actual appearance of the character in the next episode, and we then now start to see a new relationship build as Cisco grows his goatee and begins to cut that hair. An introduction of a character going forward who becomes crucial to the main story, who isn't.
I also love Explorers just because it's a really fun
Ah,
father and son adventure, and the effects are so good in that episode. Like I love the design of the Bajoran solar
Mm-hmm.
sail, and then you find out, oh my God, that's how they discovered the wormhole, and it's just
It's political because you got the whole thing with this. Huh, interesting. This didn't really happen. Oh no, that didn't happen. History didn't
that
go down
couldn't
like that.
happen.
Oh, you got here. Oh, it did happen like that. Congratulations. Here's some fireworks in space. But yes, great father son episode, which
Yep.
they did so well. Okay, season 3 is done. Let's call this the first half of Deep Space Nine. That
Yes.
Deep Space Nine has built its house, and what it is about to do is shift into overdrive. We have had generations in theater. The Enterprise D has been destroyed. And
It's
so, what
true.
happens as we open up season 4 in what we believe at first is a guest appearance because you have an epic episode two-parter where the Klingons break the treaty with the Federation because of this threat of war and how things are supposed to be done. And they think, they got some beef with the station. Cisco calls the only man in the Federation who can deal with a Klingon who is a Klingon. That's Commander Worf, played by Michael Dorn, who goes on now to become the longest tenured Star Trek cast member in the franchise because he is on the show for the next 3 seasons as they begin to tell one of the
So
most
good.
epic arcs over a show in not just Star Trek history, but history period.
100%. I couldn't say it better. We have the whole Klingon War situation happening. You get, stuff with the changelings going on. And like you said, there was generations in the theater. We know the Enterprise D destroyed. Worf is essentially a free agent now.
And they
And
mentioned that in the plot. It's like, oh, I heard about the Enterprise. It's like, that's so
oh,
good. Oh.
and I remember seeing Generations in the theater. I remember Worf, coming onto D Space Nine. It it just made the universe for me. As soon as I saw a TNG character on the show, I was like, "Oh, it's Worf. I know Worf." And it opens the door, and I don't know how much of a stunt this was behind the
Oh,
scenes production.
it's a stunt. He is
Yeah,
only brought on because they are once again TNG is off the air.
yeah.
Space Nine does not have the TNG ratings. Oh hey, we got this great TNG character. Let's put him on the show. Like that's very much so a stunt. That is not. Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the thing. He becomes integral to the rest of D Space Nine.
As far as stunts go, that's how you do a stunt. Like yes,
Yeah,
we had this reason why we want to do this. Here is an actual in-universe reason why it works. Because they don't. It's not the war. The Klingon once again. Deep Space Nine doing what it does. Yes, Way of the Warrior is a two-parter. The episode literally ends with, "Yep, we're at war with the Klingons." It's not like, "Oh yeah, we come in and we solve it in these 2 episodes." No, 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 no.
no,
This war goes on for.
which affects what happened in Undiscovered Country, because it's like, wait, we've been at peace with Klingons this whole time. Now we're at war with them, like
They,
back in Kirk's day.
they
Bum
literally
bum
dropped the
bum.
Kittimer Accords, which yeah, we just heard a couple years ago in Star Trek 6.
Synergy. It's all.
Love it. Uh, Honestly, season 4 might have one of the strongest starts in Star Trek.
Yes.
Because here we go. Episodes 1 and 2, the two-parter, Way of the Warrior. Episode 3, The Visitor. Oh, stop. Hard
Stop. This
pause.
is one of those episodes.
Stop. Yeah, we gonna be here for a minute. My God.
First, rest in peace to Tony Todd. I I love that man so much. He was such a phenomenal actor. I just finished last week. I finished Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and he is one of the characters in that. This was his last performance
Yep.
was for a video game, and it was so great to see him one last time in something. The Visitor is not just the one of the best episodes in Deep Space Nine. It is one of the greatest stories in just science fiction in general.
If The Visitor is not in your top 3 episode list on that you find, that's a trash.
You're
That's a
not
trash
doing it
list.
right.
That is a trash list. And yes, that's not, yeah, I'll let you lower it in regular TV, period. But yeah, the Visitor is one of those ones. Oh, if that don't hit you in the heartstrings, and I struggle getting through that episode.
It's tough.
It is the shit because like when I was younger, I was like, oh, he lost his daddy. I don't want to lose my daddy. Yeah, I understand, but the flip now, watching it as a grown man, and Cisco now leaving with the understanding of how much his son really needs, how much his son needs him. That he literally, as an elder man, killed himself so that he could go back to his younger self to like I'm not gonna, I couldn't watch that episode when my dad passed. Like it took a couple years. I've only maybe seen it once or twice since then because it hits you. It hits you.
Um, when we did the rewatch, when Teresa and I did the rewatch of D Space Nine, I mean, I was just like openly weeping with this episode, and thankfully my father is still alive, but it was more of that like anticipation of if I lose him, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And by far, this is literally a top 3 episode of D Space Nine. This is like one of the episodes.
Somehow if you've made it this far in this podcast and you're not a Star Trek fan, you just need to watch this episode, period,
Just this.
for the hour of television that it is.
If you take anything from, I don't know why you're listening to a podcast about Deep Space Nine if you haven't watched Star Trek, but if you take anything from this, do yourself a favor, either watch The Visitor for the first time or get some tissues ready and rewatch it because it is just a great episode of television.
Like carried by one of the minor characters in the main cast and a guest character. Like and then it does what Star Trek it does because what we get in this what do we get in this episode? An appearance of the alternate future uniforms from
Next Generation.
Next Generation. You get the return of those uniforms. So once again, it's doing what Star Trek does. Like, oh yeah, we're in the future. This is what we showed you the uniforms look like. We're in that same kind of period. It's an alternate timeline. It's Star Trek doing what it does. But my God, that is an hour of television that is just.
And here's the thing. It shares the writer with another top 3 D Space Nine episode. Michael Taylor also wrote not just The Visitor, but In the Pale Moonlight. And we'll get there.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay.
My God, what a powerhouse of a writer.
and so it shows you that dynamic of Deep Space Nine because literally you just had this heavy 2-parter season opener battle. Side note, Deep Space Nine.
And then we're going to hit you with another emotional.
And then we slow it all the way. Like we literally just started a war with the most known other race in this franchise, and we gonna slow it all the way down with a story that just deals with character.
Yep.
Like, and then, yeah, okay. So that's episode 2. You then get Hippocratic Oath, Indiscretion, which is the directorial debut from Deep Space Nine of LeVar Burton. He did 2 of TNG, but he would actually go on to do 10 in Deep Space Nine. So
and then Voyager and Enterprise.
Voyager well, but he did 10 of Deep Space Nine. So another Star Trek actor, it becomes started to become a trend of the actors getting behind the camera, taking control of the reins behind the scenes. Episode 6 gets rejoined. Episode 7 is Starship Down. Episode 9, sort of Kalis. 10 is Our Man Bashir. You then get Homefront Paradise Lost, Crossfire, Return to Grace, Sons of Moog. That is your first 15 episodes for the season.
So before the whole Dominion War heats up, season 4, just on its own, we talked about the first 3 seasons building that foundation. Well, season 4 is like the nougaty good center before you get to the really good stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just, there's so much packed in season 4.
You got like Hippocratic Oath is Bashir and the whole drugs with the Jem'Hadar, Jem'Hadar being addicted to drugs. Indiscretion, you have Kira and Gul Dukat on a investigation, dealing with their past issues and whatnot. And then you then have a new character get introduced who, the whole Bajoran Cardassian relationship, slave and slaver. And like the way they played with that to really
Oh my
make
God.
you look at all angles, everybody's opinion and thoughts of the same situation, and not be like, yeah, this is the right way. They just left it open, and they revisit that in a variety of different ways.
Yes.
Again, like that, the occupation is
That is some dark stuff in the Star Trek universe. That is a dark, dark period. But Sword of Kahless, we get that sequel to Blood Oath.
well, before you get to Sword of Kahless, you got to go next to Rejoined,
Oh
which
yeah, yeah. I was
of,
jumping far
which,
to it. Oh
which becomes one of those episodes that gets talked about a lot in Star Trek because of what it depicted with the whole
yes,
storyline between Dax and a former lover of a male host. So Star Trek pushing the boundaries wonderfully. It's a great episode. Once again, really getting into
yeah.
character with Jadzia
Oh,
Dax.
absolutely. And it's just the just what Dax, because of being a Trill, just the amount of like gender issues and topics, and they explored that whole range through her character as well. And it's something that TNG would never touch to this degree.
Unfortunately, we never really saw it touched much until Discovery.
Right.
Like this is kind,
I mean, this is tame in comparison to
oh, very
what
much so.
comes later, but it's still foundational in what it was able to accomplish in the mid 90s.
It's crazy to think that, like, yeah, it's tame compared to nowadays, but back then it was so controversial.
Yep.
Like this episode, this is one of those episodes that when you read the liner notes, you might read such and such county and such southern place did not air this episode. They
Right.
did, like that. It's one of those kind of episodes,
Yeah.
and yeah, Star Trek once again doing what Star Trek does. You then get Little Starship Down, which is a great submarine battle, but
Love it.
once again, it's not about the battle. It's about the characters inside. Awesome moments between Kira and Cisco. Because
Yes.
you
Yes.
start to get into, you start to learn that they don't feel comfortable around one another. Their work, they are literally building the foundations of what their relationship will become for the rest of the series.
Yep.
Because, she's like, I don't feel comfortable around you. You're my commander, but you're also my spiritual leader. It's,
It yeah, it plays with all these issues so well. And then we get a little fun break in Little Green Men. I do love this episode.
it's a fun,
For what it is, I love it. I love the scene where you hear like Ferenginar, like,
yeah.
and they don't know. And it's just I love it. I love the whole Roswell connection. It's
Generally,
great.
generally the Ferengi episodes are the one I
You
pass on.
don't.
I'm I'm not a fan of what they do with I'm not a fan of like the Ferengi heavy episodes. Like when you start getting Brent and all them.
Uh,
This one of those one of the Ferengi heavy episodes where it's Quark, it's Rom, and it's
Nog.
Nog, taking them to Earth because he's becoming interested in Starfleet. Great character development there. He's trying to become the
Yes.
first Ferengi in Starfleet. But yeah, this is one of the few Ferengi episodes I'm like, okay, yeah, I enjoy it. And
Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
then you get the Sword of Kahless, which is you got this new Klingon guy. Hey, we got this old Klingon guy too. What happens when Worf and Core meet up and we have the Legend of the Sword of Kahless and him and Jadzia and Core go on an adventure.
So great. Our man Bashir, I love a good holodeck adventure.
What
Uh,
what 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 happened with Robin Hood and TNG was
Right.
taken to another level with our man Bashir and Deep Space Nine, where they literally got a cease and desist letter from the
Yes.
estate because
Yes.
it was that close of a parody. But yeah, a fun holodeck episode. You know, again, seeing the characters have fun. Like you get some fun moments with the
Yeah.
characters. You know, you get, of course, Worf playing do chumps smoking the cigar. S- Avery Brooks being able to do what Avery Brooks does best and
My
just kind of
God.
let loose, playing the evil bad guy. It's
He
as Cisco,
chews
like
the scenery. Chews the scenery. Um, one of my favorite two-parters, Homefront and Paradise Lost, because you really start to see the cracks in the Federation. And it's one of the few times that we go to Earth, in all of Star Trek. So to see that kind of like modern, 24th century Earth and, going back to Starfleet headquarters and like Starfleet Academy and all that.
we would see Cisco get back in the TNG uniform.
Yes, yes, for because of some reason. Yeah, don't get me started on the whole uniforms thing. But I will say that the best D Space Nine is when they're wearing the first contact uniforms. That's when you know there's good quality.
Yeah. I cannot. Yeah, you are correct there. That
I that whole like don't get me wrong, I love the Voyager style uniforms. They started in Generations. I consider the color top uniforms more Voyager than I do D Space Nine because I think, that anyway, we'll get into that later, but I love how the D Space Nine cat, like when they're all wearing that black and gray, it's just, ooh, so good. They all look so good in those uniforms.
it's super clean. It's a super clean uniform.
Yes.
I don't love it.
It, I,
It's not enough color.
I get that.
Undershirt
I
is
totally
not
get
enough,
that.
and it's one of my bigger problems with Trek as a whole as we get later on. Is it's something about that pop of color which really stands out, whether it's the whole shirt or prominent. And I think that what we call the Voyager uniform with just the
Yeah.
black with the color on top, I think really works best.
Yes, yes. And
As clean as the first contact uniforms are.
I love those uniforms, but there's something about the first contact uniforms going along as the more militaristic
Oh,
look during the
it
Dominion
fits
War.
right in. It fits
Yeah, it's
right in. Yeah.
perfect. It's perfect.
You
I
know,
just I know because first contact happened and we had some wonky issues because Avery Brooks was like using
I know, Generations is where you had the issues.
we also had some issues with the first contact.
Oh, because
I remember the
yeah,
com badge was like in the gray part in one episode, and we're like, what are we doing
he's
here?
moving. Yeah, the Cisco moving badge. Yeah, that change happened sometime in the back half of season 5. I mean season 4. We never
Yes.
get an answer for it. It
It
just
just
happens.
happens.
It happens. Yeah, the second half of season 4, you get a little. It's not as strong, but you get some good episodes. You got like Rules of Engagement, another
Yes.
great Klingon, a good Klingon episode, a good trial episode, and a great episode with the guest star. Like it, you start to see the way Deep Space Nine pulls these different ingredients and combinations. Like, oh yeah, these are the things that make good Trek. Let's put these couple together. It works. Let's put these couple together. It works. Let's put these couple together. It works. And so you start to have some fun, and things start to ramp up as we get to season 5 because it's we're not here yet. And I think as frustrating as it can be, because I didn't really realize they teased it out like this sometimes. Like,
Hmm.
because you hear Deep Space Nine is so serialized, it changed television. Yeah, it did. But once again, it is still very episodic. Deep Space Nine, season 5, is when the war begins, but we get to have some fun before then.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been teased because at the end of season 4, we meet the link. We know some things happen there that we aren't aware of that we learn of later on. But the threat is coming. Yes, the war is coming. Then we get to season 5 and we start continuing to deal with the Klingon War that's been going on all season. Because they've been once again the way they can not just end it just on a whim because you gotta go week by week. Nah, you get to play out, and we get the end of the season of the Klingon War with Odo, who is human at this point because he killed a
That's
changeling.
right. That's right. Yep.
We get Odo, Worf, or not necessarily Worf because he is Klingon, but we get Odo, Cisco, and O'Brien dressing up as Klingons, which is just hilarious.
Apocalypse Rising is just that's a good one. I like how they bring Gowron back.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good, and yeah, the makeup is crazy. It's yeah.
Cisco eating up the scenery as only Avery Brooks can. We get the ship, which, as these war issues start, we start to get some battles. We got to crash ships, and that becomes a fight for the ship, and they get the ship, and that becomes a plot point later on. Like, I love that Deep Space Nine is the perfect example of planting seeds and reaping them later.
Hmm.
And we're at the point where we're starting to reap some seeds, and yet they are continuing to plant more seeds. Like it's that space of it's not just about this episode, but it is
Hmm.
about this episode because the episodes are complete, but it's also serving at the same time.
That's right.
Ah, sip of water there. Okay, so we get some good episodes. Um, we then come to just an interesting time in TV. Forrest Gump has just hit the theaters and is revolutionary for its technology. And if you've never seen Forrest Gump, essentially, you see Tom Hanks as Forrest Gump get inserted into a bunch of historical events,
Historical.
as
Yes.
if he was really there. And to this day, Forrest Gump holds up. And so, what do we see happen on Star Trek? Well, we get an incredible, for lack of better words, right now, crossover episode where the Defiant time travels back in
This is
time
so good.
to Space Station K7, a classic episode of TOS, and they interact literally with the episode of Trouble with Tribbles.
I remember how much they promoted this episode back in the day
Oh,
because this was season 5 was in the 30th season of Star Trek, or the 30th anniversary of Star Trek, pardon me. And this was the big 30th anniversary episode. And how they managed to pull this off is a feat of, like you said, a feat of editing, a feat of special effects. It's perfect. Trials and Tribulations is is one of those like top 5 D Space Nine episodes for me.
I'm not mad at that. It's one of the ones generally when I mentioned between TOS, TNG, and D Space Nine, you generally find a 3 to 5 episodes from each series, which are the ones in conversation. Trials and Tribulations is generally number 5 out of that grouping. Sometimes it's in, sometimes it's not, and
Right.
I'm not mad at you either way. Like, but you're generally going to find it easily in the top 20 of Star Trek of all time because it's fun. Am I correct if I remember? I feel like this was a double night coordinated with UPN as well, because isn't this the same night that they aired the episode where Sulu made his return? Or was that
Hold
another
on.
occasion? Because I feel
No,
like
wait,
that
wait,
was a
wait.
double night.
Hold on. Because that was Voyager flashback. Hold,
Yes, it was written as a tribute in the original series of Star Trek in the year that show's 30th anniversary.
yes.
The series
So,
Voyager also produced a tribute episode, Flashback,
so
on different dates.
flashback aired first.
September. Yeah, and this was November. Okay, I just remember them
So
being very close in terms of this whole because yeah, it was
yes.
marketing. This was a major moment for the franchise. There were commercials, there were interviews, there were articles. Because yes, we'll talk about Flashback when we get to Voyager, but
flashback was
yeah,
the Voyager tribute
yeah,
30th anniversary, and that aired closer to the actual
right,
anniversary date.
yeah,
I think it was only like 2 days off of the anniversary date.
yes, September 11th. Surprisingly, before September 11th was September 11th.
Exactly. And then this aired 2 months later on November 4th, Trials and
Yeah,
Tribulations. So like for the 30th anniversary, I was already blown away by Flashback as a Voyager fan. I was like, oh my God. And they got Tuvok and they tied it to Undiscovered Country, one of my favorite TOS films, as we talked about. And now Trials and Tribulations, this fun episode of Star Trek D Space Nine in the middle of a season that gets pretty heavy.
Yeah.
So this is like your little break of refreshment before, crap hit the fan for D Space Nine. Yeah.
And it was fun because this is the first time, and I remember some of the questions. How will this work? Because you've never seen current Trek interact in older Trek times. So we were like, we saw them. They like, it was like, how is this going to work? How is this going to work for that 60s style? And how does that fit in canon? Like, should they update it? Like all
and
the questions.
And how they comment on it, like Jadzia just commenting about the style and how good she
loving
looks.
the short skirt,
and then everyone kind of looking at the Klingons like, what the hell is this? And they're looking at Worf, and he's like, we don't talk about that.
And they should have left it at that. But you get who is it? Is it Bashir asking about the uniforms? Yeah, Bashir.
Yeah.
He's like, aren't you wearing the wrong color? And Cisco's like, nah, engineering wore red. Command officers wore yellow.
Yeah, and the way that they blatantly address these questions, just head on, that was a D Space Nine, like just the writers, just from Ronald D. Moore.
As we talked about in TNG, we never got a reason why they switched.
Right.
We never, and so here they are. I was like, okay, which the care and concern that goes into making a show that just does not seem, it seemed to be missing for a minute, was here and present. And so I hate when people sometimes come at Trekkies like, y'all standards too high. No, we've been eating steak for a minute. Good steak. Deep Space Nine is a perfect example. We know what y'all can cook up when y'all put time, energy, and effort and actually care about what you're putting together.
Exactly.
We know the standard. And so, and it's also crazy because here you get the two captains meeting, you get Cisco meeting Kirk, even though, through technology. And it was just crazy because fans, we'll talk about when we get there, aren't necessarily satisfied with the great meetup that they wanted forever, which they got in theaters. But that's another story. But here you get just a couple months, or it's more than a couple months, but just a short time later, just a couple years, not too much later, year and a half. You get, the current captain meeting that captain. It's just a fun moment. It's fan service and they know it's fan service, but it's not crappy fan service. You got, once again, they reach back, you get the returning guest actor who played Darby on the original series comes back to play the character again, and you get a great story involving other plot elements, the Bajoran, or like, it's all these things that you have available, and you make a great story. For, it's not just shoehorned elements. It's, we got this. We can do, we can add a little of this, and it fits and works.
And it makes sense because they take those elements, like you said, and it just works. It just works because there's an in-universe simple explanation for it all, and they just make it work. And they make this crazy meetup happen. One of my favorite interactions in this whole episode is when Cisco and Jadzia are in the hallway and they see Kirk and Spock, and she's like, oh, I didn't know he was just so whatever. And he's like, oh yeah, Kirk was like the ladies' man. And she's like, no, Spock. Oh, Spock. And then, to see that carry on later in Lower Decks where, Mariner thinks that Spock is hot. Yeah. Like, just this whole Spock equals hot thing it started in D Space Nine. I love it. It's great. Fun.
And the fact that this was an episode just because of the technology. I remember the two big scenes that they really the news coverage would tackle or were used to see was the fight scene in the bar, and how that was coordinated and implemented, and then the scene where Kirk is addressing down the crew.
They're all lined up.
How they put in Chief O'Brien and Dr. Bashir inserted. I remember they would show you the original from
Yeah.
the episode and how they superimpose them in. And to this day, like you watch that now, it's still clean. It's not an episode that you're like, oh yeah, this looks bad. That's bad. Blue screen, green screen. It doesn't work. No, it still holds up to this day.
And even with like Kirk and Cisco meeting, like they matched the lighting for Cisco in that scene where he's next to Kirk, and it just like they were able to match like the film grain, and like
Mhm.
it just works so good. One
Little
of my absolute favorites.
little care and effort. Okay. We get to Things Past, which is the eighth episode of the season. I just like to mention it because it's another example of this show not rushing another story. Like once again, Deep Space Nine, it's like, yeah, we'll play with this story today. We'll play with this story today. Put that down. We'll play with this story today. And they're weaving in and out. And so here we have a story where we learn more about the Cardassian occupation on the station and conditions, which we've had before. Because in season three, you had the episode where Jake, Cisco, and O'Brien get, you have the old security system trapping them in, and you learn about the dangers of that. And so here we get another example with the four of them being transported through Odo's mind, experiencing some of the occupation and seeing what that was. And so it's another example of just them just picking pieces up at different times and playing with them. Um, where are we? Woo! So the Maquis have been a storyline. Another thing
Yes.
and so now, yeah, halfway through this season, we get the wrap up of this story, or not the wrap up, but we get a good climax. Because the previous season, you had Michael Eddington. I didn't mention Michael Eddington as a character brought on as security because of the Dominion War, who turns out to be a Maquis
Infiltrator. Yeah.
infiltrator, and we get the relationship between him and Cisco leads to some of the greatest chewing the scenery.
Oh yeah.
Cisco becomes a man on a warpath to get revenge against this guy, and it's clearly about revenge on this guy. With an episode like For the Uniform, which is it's a great chase episode. It's
Yes.
it's that literature. We get Star Trek referencing literature again, and Cisco just going ham to the point that he shoots torpedoes on the civilians. Oh, gotta love him. He will push the boundaries. It does what needs to get done. He even got Worf like, whoa, whoa, are we pushing this? You got Worf. Worf, he says Worf fire. Worf was like, Captain, well, you got Worf questioning.
And it all comes together in a head it for another two-parter, a mid-season two-parter. These mid-season two-parters become a staple in Star Trek.
Yeah,
And in Purgatory Shadow and by Inferno's Light, you've got the internment camp, you've got the Changeling infiltration arc, you've got the Klingon war arc. It all comes to a head in this two-parter.
we learned the Dr. Bashir that we have been watching for who knows how long. And how do you know? Because they changed uniforms. And this Dr. Bashir that we meet has on the old one,
And you're
which
like,
means you're like,
what
wait,
the
what? What?
yeah, it's massive.
It's a
Did
masterpiece.
we ever figure out where potentially that could have happened, or did
Well, but
they never said that?
I don't think it matters either. And I think that's part of the fun. Like, cause you
Yep.
don't know. And so for whatever your experience is, you could like, yeah, pick back then. Maybe it's our man Bashir. Maybe that's when he got into the James Bond. I don't know. But I think that's part of the fun with it is that you get to like, huh, when did this happen? And I don't think we need all the answers sometimes. I think
That's
that it's
true.
just like, okay, could this have happened? Yeah, sure. I don't need to know how. Like, I don't need all the questions answered. But yes, it is this two-parter which literally begins the ramp up to the Dominion War. We got,
It's like full steam ahead from here
yeah,
on out.
where we are marching on. Cardassians have joined the Dominion. Things are happening. You still get some episodes in between here, but as we wrap up season 5, we get
Mm,
a call to arms.
mm, mm.
I I remember this one so because I this is one of the ones that I didn't watch live. This is one of the ones I
Oh,
so vividly remember my father the next morning talking about, yo, you've got to watch this one. He he did some work on the computer, and they attacking the station, son, and he's getting ready to leave, but before he leave, he Cisco 397 and bounces out, and they get on the ship, the Defiant, them and the Bird of Prey, they cloak and they get away, and then it ends as they reach this massive fleet and then just turn around. Yo, you got to watch this ASAP, son. I remember this one so vividly because it's like this was one something you never. The end of that episode is something you've never seen before, but this is a masterful piece of television. Like the build up from the start, because you got the whole thing with the wedding and to the preparation to the battle.
There is so much packed in this hour of television. It is ridiculous. And this is where a lot of the recurring characters really shine because the idea to mine the wormhole was Rom's.
Yep. They are now becoming integral to the plots of how
Yeah,
things move forward. Like, at this point, Bashir and Lita have already had a relationship. It's Rom and Lita who are going to get married. And
right.
so yeah, we care about two secondary characters enough to know that they have a relationship, to know how this relationship has started, progressed, and now they're getting married. It's a mini thread coming to a conclusion. Like as you talked about, it's the layers. It's the layers upon layers upon layers and layers and layers and layers
And
and layers.
and you can do things like what this episode does, which effectively splits the main cast
Yep.
into two settings.
Yeah.
And it still is a solid show. It doesn't lose any momentum. This is the effects of a war and another occupation. One of the most densely packed but most satisfying episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
It is if a show is firing on all cylinders when it's good, this is on another like
This is like one of the top season finales. Like this is how you end a season.
and set something up. Because then the magic, the beauty. Season 6 opens not with the battle we're thinking we're going to get. Months later into the war, and it ain't
Yep.
going so well. Like it's what Deep Space Nine does as a show, especially let's just call it what it is, especially with this back half, a war show. And so
Yeah.
or a show about war, a lot of things about war. So you're thinking, oh, battles, conflict. Oh, it's sci-fi, it's Star Trek, shooting. No, we get some great battles going forward. But the show's not oversaturated in it. Like it's Deep Space Nine has some great ship moments, some great ship battles and things, and it reuses a lot of footage a lot of times. But it's about the characters first. Like, we don't see the battle here. We are teased, which ends up being a great payoff that will come up in shortly. No, the season opens with a star, first of all, we've never seen a fleet like this before. You're seeing
Right. Oh my
Excelsior
god.
class, Reliance, Galaxy classes, Defiant classes. Those are the major models we see over and over again, and some
Yeah.
Klingon ships. And then you open up and you're seeing ships being towed, battle damage, and you're just like, wow. Wow. Oh, this
Yeah.
what
Oh,
it
it's
is.
happening.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is what it is. This ain't no jokey joke. They've already shown us we know how to do a war. We've done this war with the Klingons. Now we're gonna do another one, and we're gonna take it up a level. You really gonna do something you've already done again and do it better. Do it better.
It's so good. What? Why is the show so good?
Because the season 6 opens with one of the first.
Yes.
When you talk about Deep Space Nine being serialized, what a lot of folks think about is the opening to season 6 and the end of season 7.
Yeah.
Because season 6 opens up, we're literally what we're used to. The first 6 episodes are back to back. Like it is heavy story, back to back to back to back to back. They all you got it. You got to watch one to understand the other. But in the same way, they are also episodic.
Yes.
Masterful in this major arc, this major moment in the battle where they are, excommunicated from Deep Space
The
Nine.
Dominion invasion. Yep.
It is. Oh, it brings up all kinds of questions. Doesn't give answers. You see people grasping with their role, like what Kira goes through in her Is she a collaborator? We see growth here. We see challenge. It is masterful. And then, of course, we get the big payoff towards the end
Uh,
with the major ship battle, which, as you mentioned earlier, just for this footage alone, you have to see the documentary
yes.
because my
Oh,
God, I have,
mm, the
I have never.
remaster.
Oh,
Mm.
oh, oh, and
After
that's CGI.
I'm not gonna lie. After we're done with this, I'm watching that remastered clip because it is so good. Like when I first originally saw this back in 1997, I was already over the moon.
It's it's still amazing. It's already amazing.
But seeing the remaster of what they were able to do for this documentary, I'm like, I need a multi-millionaire to fund the remaster for D Space Nine.
We'll get to that. Yeah, no, we can do it now. No, somebody needs to. Somebody needs to because Deep Space Nine is a beautiful show, but it's not bright. It's dark, and I think it would. If looking at how good TOS and TNG look, the depth that I think the remaster would bring to this show. Ah, the
Like
Deep Space Nine being
all of
actually.
the remaster clips, and I remember when the Kickstarter was going for What You Leave Behind, and they had stretch goals to add
Yep.
like more and more
And that
remastered
battle was like the key piece of
yeah.
the fundraising. And it was just like, yeah,
And the way that it's the Defiant is like one of the most kick-ass ships ever. Ever. It's so good.
it gets it right. The
Yeah.
bat we get you get a good amount of battle footage, but it's not long because like that remastered clip is maybe what 4 or 5 minutes. Like it's not a lot of footage. It's not a lot,
Right.
but you get the moments of the ship flying and diving in and out, and the character moments on the bridge. Cisco barking orders, making decisions, things are going on, and the scale of it all. Like the Defiant is a little ship. It's flying in and out of Cardassian battle cruisers. It's flying in and out of Galaxy class ships. You like the scale of everything looks good too. You get the sense that yeah, all these
Yeah.
things are on some different angles and size, and yeah,
And
that's
we never saw anything like this in Star
oh,
Trek before, not to
uh-uh.
this scale.
Brand new, brand new. This is
Even
them bringing
even
something never seen before.
even in the movie First Contact, which came out a year before, we only saw
10 ships max.
10 ships max. This was fleets upon fleets. You really saw the scale of how big Starfleet is. It's Deep Space Nine, baby. I mean, this show rocks.
I mean, it's just yeah, and for it, and like one of the big concerns, is like how does this work? It's a space station. Like even when you go back to Deep Space Nine defending itself in the season finale, which is literally just a reuse of footage from the Way of the Warrior. But even when you go back to the battle scene of that, like the
But
way
it's
the way
all
it was
the
structured,
editing.
all
It's
the ships, like you don't see it on the scale that you would expect to see it today, but the way it's filmed and the way it's edited and what you're seeing that you've never seen before, the amount of ships and the way ships are flying across, like it's the biggest battle and remains to be so to an extent that has ever been seen in Star Trek, and you don't feel like you missed a thing.
and I know these moments work because the music also does a lot of heavy lifting.
Dennis McCarthy is my favorite Star Trek composer.
Yeah. And just like the scenes of the station defending itself and just the music you have underlying this whole battle, that just ramps up the tension even more.
Oh, it's
It's
fine,
so
fine
good.
work. So good. We'll really get into it with the movies because it becomes more apparent there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, the work across the episodes here is it's just great. And then literally you have Sacrifice of Angels, which is them taking back the station. You get some heartbreaking characters, the whole with the whole Ducat and his daughter, like her falling in love with Garrett. Like, the way this show played with just relationships,
Uh,
It's as you put it, it's grounded. It was messy. It was great. It was consequential. And the way this thing at this point, this show is it's paying off already, but it is still building up to pay off even more. Like it's like, oh, we got more for you. Hey, hey,
Oh,
hey.
hey, uh, right after Sacrifice of Angels, you are cordially invited.
Okay, so perfect time. How do you feel about the Worf and Jadzia relationship in the show?
I really like it because, like D Space Nine, the relationship's a little messy. uh, but I love that Worf found someone that challenged him and made him better. Because I
Hmm.
think Jadzia made him better.
Strong female character who, yes, even in a relationship, held her own, knew her worth, and demanded.
And this episode takes mother in law to a whole new level.
She gets hazed. Jadzia gets hazed,
Yes.
but it's a it's a good relate. It's a good one because this isn't the first time. This is the second time I believe he's made an appearance, or it might be the third. I don't remember. This might be the last one, actually. Is it? Of Alexander. Alexander has made a return once again. Deep Space Nine, plucking up a character because
Yes.
we could see that relationship continue, for better or for worse. Alexander becomes a laughing stock, but that's good luck somehow on a Klingon warship. But we see that relationship continue, and so yeah, bad mother-in-laws, the father and son relationship, which gets played upon in a variety of different ways, which is always a point of contention when it comes to Worf, possibly one of the worst TV fathers.
Oh, absolutely horrible. But I like the relationship with Dax because I mean this season also makes it tragic. Like we don't get much of Jadzia and Worf.
we'll get there.
I
We'll
know,
get there. That's a low point. That's a low point.
but I think it just makes the character of Worf stronger.
the
And
most developed character possibly on Star Trek. Period. Like this man has done it all. Done it all.
but there's so many damn good episodes in season 6. And like you mentioned before, it's not all war based. The war is still going on, but you still have time for some of more episodic type episodes.
You cordially invited. You get Resurrection, which is another mirror universe episode, and then you get
Right.
statistical probabilities, which is we've learned Bashir is essentially an augment because of decisions his parents have made, and so now we meet a crew of other engineered people, and so this becomes a war story about kind of from an intelligence point of view, but also
Hmm.
from an inclusion. Like it's layered. It's a layered episode dealing with the war, but not necessarily just pew pew bang bang. We got to show the fighting. No, here's some of the things that go on, backstory, and still doing it in a way that Star Trek does. It's a funny episode. It's got some quirkiness to it.
I know you don't like the Ferengi episodes, but I do like the
I
Magnificent
guess for
Ferengi.
Amy.
I di- I don't know. I have a soft spot for these Ferengi episodes. I
I'm
think
not mad at you. It's
I
just
know, I know.
it just doesn't float my boat. Although Grand Nega Zeg is hilarious.
Yes.
Being played by Wallace, like it's Wallace Shawn, one of those you recognize that voice anytime you hear it, and so it's just one of
Yes.
those like
Definitely one of those actors where you're like, I know that guy.
yes. You then get the stretch here. There's not the whole stretch, but there's a couple episodes in this next 10. First up is Waltz, which again, one of these classic just two actors chewing
Yes.
scenery.
My God. Yeah.
And the way here that you evolve Ducat as a character and the multiple levels to it too. it. We can see it. We don't agree with it, but we see why he believes. Like the levels here, and the way Mark Galamo and Avery Brooks is
It's
one of those.
it's one of the most just greatest, like, because we've all seen this type of episode before, even on Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Like two characters stranded on a planet
In a
on
cave. In a
opposite
cave.
side in a cave or
In a
whatever.
cave. Deep Space Nine is continues that. It's always a cave.
And just two characters and two actors for the majority of the episode just talking it out and getting to the heart of what their issues are and not seeing eye to eye, but they still have to work together somehow and somehow find a level of trust, even though they are mortal enemies. This is a brilliant, brilliant episode written by Ronald D. Moore. This is
Yeah.
like his bread and butter type of
Direct
episode.
Directed by Rene Auberjonois. Like Odo's directing this episode. Magnificent job at it. Like
The,
the
yeah,
fact is this episode is not the end, but it literally ends with Gul Dukat doing the mustache twirl. But in
right.
such a way that it's just like,
Yeah, yeah,
oh, like
yeah.
okay, he is. If it wasn't clear before, because it hasn't been clear the way he has literally been bouncing back and forth, although it's been more clear during the war. Yeah, this the baddie, and we're gonna see like this literally leads to this is again another consequential repercussion that's just be like it's all these things being built up for this epic finale, which is just coming, but it's just like another thing added on to another thing, and Cisco recognizing that yeah he trying to take down Bajor. I'm the emissary. I love this place. I can't let that happen.
And I think this is where the talk was starting of like, Cisco wanting to settle down and choosing somewhere on Bajor. I mean, that starts to get introduced where he's
It's it's been introduced. It started back when they were kind of gone because you had the big talk with him and the admiral on
yes,
that star.
Emerald
He's talking
Rass.
about when I go home, it'll be to Bajor because he's all like, well, what if we reassign you? He's like, it don't matter. Home gonna be Bajor. So, but it's a building thread that yeah, this relationship between Bajor and Cisco
It's deepening.
it's deepening. This is becoming a special place to him, and yeah. Who mourns for mourn? It's a hilarious episode,
That's just great.
or which you need because Waltz was heavy. They hit you with who mourns for mourn,
And then the next
and
episode,
then you
holy,
get which
okay,
sound repetitive. One of the finest hours.
this is one of those top threes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If this is not on your top three, something's wrong with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet, no, we're not playing that.
Far,
Yeah. Generally, you find
yeah,
Deep Space Nine holds. Like I said, they all hold about the same amount in the top episodes. Deep Space Nines are heavily weighted.
far,
Heavy.
it's far beyond the stars.
Directed by Avery Brooks. Masterpiece by Avery Brooks. This was major news during the time.
Yes.
I remember like the waves this one made outside, in entertainment
Oh,
to
this
60
was
minutes,
in the news.
all that.
Yeah, this was in the news for sure. Um, God, I mean, what can we say about this? This is just
What I love
what can you say about this? Because this like this isn't Star Trek allegory. This is Star
oh,
Trek
this is
hitting you on top of the head. Like, hello, we're dealing with racism here. We're dealing with 1950s just
you love the episode for what it is. It's one of the finest hours of television in a story that's being told within another story, and it opens the door to like it really puts Deep Space Nine in this special place for a lot of people. They're like, where is it in Trek? Because this makes you question some things. As the line is, am I the dreamer or am I the dream? It makes you look at some things. And so yes, to see a franchise as big as Star Trek tackle this, which it has tackled before, but
right.
for not to be an allegory, as you said, this is blunt, straight on, and just everybody going ham in their roles because you had the fun. You're seeing Michael Dorn as Michael Dorn, not in makeup. You're seeing Armin Shimmerman not in makeup. You're seeing Renee not in makeup. You're seeing Mark, and you're seeing a lot of guest stars not in makeup and making appearances. What I love
Right.
about it is because here we are, season 6, with a show with a black lead, and so this is episode 137 out of 176. This is the first episode that makes a big deal about blackness.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the things I love about Deep Space Nine. Whereas, yes, we are known and know that DS9 tackles these things, but it took 136 episodes till we got an episode that was like, is this and not that other episodes weren't dealing with racism and stuff. No, this is
Right.
just the first one that dealt with blackness. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. Far too often with shows and things of this nature, we kind of get in this space where, okay, if it's a black character, it's all got to be about black stuff, black, 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 black. Everything's got to be rooted in this, or insert race here. Everything has to be so rooted in this. No,
Mm-hmm.
to this point, yeah, this was just a show with a black lead and a black captain, and it wasn't made a big deal of. You had elements of his character which were brought up in natural conversations, as you brought up. Yeah, he's from New Orleans. His dad lives down there, has a restaurant. He loves to cook.
Mm-hmm.
Things that are tied to blackness sometimes, but it's not necessarily, hey, this is black. This is the first episode of the series to do that. And it's not like it went on to be like, yep, blackity, blackity, black after this. No, it gets touched on like 2 other times, I think, if I can recount, maybe.
Yeah.
It, that's what is desired. So as a whole from the show, it's like it's working on such a whole nother level.
Mm-hmm.
And for it to be a story within the plot of the overall show to still do this. Like it's still moving the story forward with the character of Cisco while doing this directly tied allegory. Like, my God. It is, again,
Yeah.
somehow if you've made it over 2 hours into this podcast and don't like Star Trek, I thank you. But if you have never seen this episode, like this, that's must watch
Yeah.
TV. Must
No,
watch.
it is. It's must watch. I love how this episode came together. I love that it was Avery Brooks was the one that got to direct this because he understood the assignment and he brought, my God, not only do you have to direct this episode, but you have to carry this episode as the main focus of the episode.
The moment of the episode falls on you. There's very few. There's sometimes in an episode where you're like, okay, there are moments where if this doesn't work, it falls apart. And he
Yeah.
carries the moment in this with that breakdown scene, and I understand that. I get that. And I get it for me because clearly it just hits on other words. Like it's like, oh, yes, I understand that struggle, and it's just like, oh, Star Trek.
Yeah. This, I mean, by far, this is like literally one of the top 3 of all, not of all Star Trek.
Yeah, of all time. Like Deep Space Nine. Like I love Star Trek. TNG made me love it. Deep Space Nine made this a marriage. Like you do, you doing this?
Deep Space Nine locked you in.
Like yeah, like and just as you age and grow, like it just has to make you appreciate the medium and storytelling. Like
Mm-hmm.
outside of just Star Trek being Star Trek, like this is the kind of stuff that TV can do, and we all know, regardless of the show, franchise, whatever, there are episodes that just do special things, and that's just like the care, love, and appreciation to be able to do that, to give space for that. And unfortunately, it's just one of those things where it's just like they're only that list is those
Yeah.
when you talk about those top episodes of all time across things, like they're like it's a small list. There's a lot of space for shows to do this, and that's just one where it's just like, yeah, just incredible, incredible.
And it's one of those episodes in Star Trek, and both of us being decades fans of this franchise most of our lives, the to see these episodes like when we originally saw them and to revisit these episodes at different points in our lives and to get something new that we didn't before just because of where we are in life is that's the power of Star Trek as a whole. And D
Mm.
Space Nine just amplifies that.
It's it's doing it on a whole nother level. And again, it's like this, that's the kind of stuff we want from the genre.
Right.
And like I said, it's not something we're asking for with every episode.
No, we
But you
want
need it every now. Like
yeah.
sometimes, sometimes, in the words of Kendrick Lamar, you just have to pop out and show them. And this is what I and so
Yes.
and it's one of those things. Like I looked at, I was like, yeah, what are the top episodes of Star Trek? And it's like you got people's got different orders, but it's generally the same block of episodes. And it's like, yeah, this is the creme. These are the creme de la cremes. And
Well,
yeah, that's
it's
one
what
of
the
them.
core of Star Trek is
Yeah,
about.
and so it's always nice to get that's like, yeah, tap back into that, and then but in a way, once again, it's not just doing it to do it.
Hmm.
It was a way to move the story forward. So it's still remaining true to what it is. It's not sacrificing what it is. It's not stopping it like, yeah, we feel like being woke right now. We're gonna stop this, be woke, and do this thing, and then carry. No, 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 no. This was a key story for this
And
character, for the show. Like
yeah,
it's
and
checking all.
it carries the whole spiritual element, his role as an emissary, the effects of
Mhm.
the orbs, like it all comes together to tell this story. Again, using what you have already established in the show to progress and move forward.
Yep.
That's the most important part.
So we continue on to get one little ship in the season. Honor Among Thieves, Change of Heart. That's a big one. Change of Heart is a big one because this is the one where Worf chooses Jadzia on the away mission over the mission, and we get
Oh my
the
God.
ongoing thing of Worf would never become captain. Um,
Yep.
but gets dressed down. Once again, one of the reasons why I love Cisco. Cisco dresses him down as he should, but then is like, I understand. If it was me in the same situation, I would probably make the same choice. And it's like, it's that level of, yes, I'm your commanding officer, your boss, your superior. You failed at your job, but I understand the choice you made in that failing.
Yep.
And I,
It's one of the reasons why Cisco is such a damn good captain. And
like,
he earned that captain. Because he started this series. We didn't even touch upon that. He started as a commander
right,
and
commander.
got promoted in the show.
Towards the end of season 4, I
Or
believe it
yep.
was. And they
Yep.
made the joke like, yeah, this is a long time coming. Like the
Exactly.
show, because there was a whole thing like, well, he's not a captain. He's a command. It was a whole issue when back in the day when it was starting. But yeah, the show made that right. But yeah, so that's a big one that we see echo in some other properties. And then you get a couple of, you get you damn, wrong, yeah, wrong's darker than death and night. Again,
Another heavy, extremely, my God.
like woo. Yeah, I can't glance over it. I want to get to the one. I was like, no, can't glance over it. Another episode. Ducat and Kier, repercussions of what happened during the occupation. Who was doing like? Who was making what choices? What? Whose truth is truth? What do I know? Another brilliant hour of television.
And that's what I love about D Space Nine is those shades of gray. Because even the worst of the worst Ducat, there's some light in there. And it's weird. It's like I don't want to like empathize with this character. I don't there's just so much with just his arc too in this
even a
series.
even a broken clock is right twice a day. And so those moments where he's right, you're like,
He's got a point, but you don't want him to be right.
you
That's the
don't want to
thing.
be right, or you're like, I agree with your premise where you started from, but where you ended up, nah, bro. I would have gone left. You went right. We would have made some different. I understand where he was coming. He's literally the opposite. Cisco's like, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand your choice. With Ducat, it's I understand where you're coming from, but nah, bro, I ain't no. That's not how you do that.
So they hit you with that. Then the next episode they hit you with Inquisition, which is the introduction of Section 31.
One of the
For
most
good or for
hated,
worse.
one of the most hated or most loved aspects of how this show expanded canon. Yeah, section 31. I don't have the big issues that people have with it.
Sure, sure.
Because as people will one of the complaints about DS9 is that it is dark. But even
Right.
as we mentioned or made hint of when we were talking about TNG, you had kind of hints that there were some like you had one the whole thing with the aliens taking over the Federation. But
Conspiracy, yep.
then you literally had the Pegasus incident.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like something Section 31 would be doing. So you've got these things that's like, yeah, it's not always above board.
Exactly.
And yeah, you need that, especially like once again in this format of show. Everything can't always be easy peasy greasy. Like, no, you need these things which kind of generate that conflict. And yeah, I'm not mad at Section 31 here. I think it's not overplayed. I think
Right.
it played DS9 does a good job of playing with things just enough. There are a couple things where like, oh, we went back to this one or two times too much. But for the most part, the majority of Zelma is like, yo, you found that sweet spot of keeping me intrigued, but not making me feel overburdened or bored with it. Like, oh, we getting back into this? Oh, okay. Oh, I forgot that was still going. You know. And then you get the last of the four or five strong ones for Deep Space Nine
In the
in terms
pale,
of all-time greats.
in the pale moonlight.
In the pale moonlight. First off, as much as I like my color in Star Trek, and this is gonna sound wrong, but the different phases of that uniform we see Cisco in, like
Yes.
it starts off all buttoned up, but then the jacket is open and he's got the vest under, and then the jacket is just off, so he's just chilling in there with the colored turtleneck and the vest, which is clean. I love a good vest. And then
I
I want to see
and
the vest
that,
opened
that
up.
that was one of my favorite looks of Picard in First Contact when he removes the jacket and it's just the vest. I love that shit.
I love every version of it because even like we'll talk like Kirk
Yeah,
and Generations. He's got there is something about that Starfleet vest look,
the
which is
vest and the turtleneck. It's great.
just clean and
And then he's like got the vest fully open and it like zipped down.
yep,
It's
yep,
just
a drink in the hand. Like it is Avery Brooks once again chewing up the scenery, presenting like this whole time the war has been advancing and moving on, but yet it's not. These episodes aren't. Hey, here's a battle. Here's a battle. Here's engagement. No, it's everything going around as it's.
and the build up for this because you're seeing them in the war room and getting these reports and friends are dying and people that they know on other ships are dying and you're
Yep.
seeing the list. It's a war. And this whole time the reason Cisco is pushed to this is because the Federation in the end is losing. We are on a losing side of a war and something needs to change for the war to go in our favor.
Yep.
And that was built upon with the genetically engineered people. And so it's all building up to this moment. So you see that, like, it's like you know where Cisco is coming from.
He's
And
already shown the propensity. If something needs to get done,
he'll do
I'm
it.
going to do what needs to get done for things to be right.
And this is one of my top episodes of Deep Space Nine because of the level of involvement of Garrick, who Cisco does not want to work with.
That is a beautiful pairing. Avery
It's
and Andrew, the pairing of them is just because yes, it's like I don't want to.
but I have to. And the ways that Garrick just pushes him a little more and pushes him a little more and like is whispering in his ear. These two actors, I could watch them all day interact. That's how good this is.
Oh, he's not gonna leave the room. You don't have to worry about that, right? And you just see the terror, or let's go have a conversation. Like the way they just there's this ambiguity. Like I don't want to experience whatever he might be like. Like the way Andrew plays it with Garrick here, and literally this episode in a beautiful way is literally just a different take on the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few of the one. And literally Garrett breaks that down with the whole like, yeah, you did this, you did this, you did this, but you just saved all these people possibly at the cost of one man. And he's like, can you live with that? And and we get the like,
And
oh,
we also get the most memeable thing in Star Trek. It's a fake. It's a fake.
well, just for giving us that moment alone, this one was in history way before. One of the most it's literally almost on con type levels with that line alone. But oh, the character depth here, and it's just one I was like, oh, get dark, like get dark with it. Yes, go there, sir. Chew up that scenery. Like once again, it's that Shakespearean type of thing. He's just delivering a monologue. It is a monologue.
And that's also what makes the because D Space Nine always pushes, like, I guess the shakeup of how these episodes are filmed in such a way, because
Mhm.
we've never been at the perspective of someone talking to us like this the whole episode. We are the computer listening to his log.
We've been present for bits and pieces in the past. Oh, how it's opened up. Kirk is opening it up with his log, or Picard is opening
But
it up,
not to this
but
level.
never. We're literally in the moment with him doing his log, and then at the end, I can live with it. Computer delete that entire entry, and then just to go to black. Oh my god! Like, woo!
Like credits right there.
Credit just ends. Like that is awesome. Beautiful filmmaking. Whoo. We then get and then so after that we get a little fun. We get the introduction of Vic Fontaine as the loud singer, in his way, which becomes a piece that they pop in and out throughout the series, which was a nice needed element. You could kind of tell at this point it starts getting to that. Ooh, how we need some new energy. We
Right.
keep we need the thing to kind of carry us across the finish line. It feels like that, but it is a very solid element. I enjoy the things they did with that. Allowed those some fun comical moments in the Hollow Suite that every Star Trek episode needs. And then you get the reckoning once again. Him doing with being the emissary. Valiant. Oh,
And seeing the Red Squadron for the first time, Red Squad, and like a whole team of cadets, and we get Nog's side of all of this. Fantastic.
Profit and Lace. It's a Ferengi one. I know you like it.
Actually, I
Oh,
do
you don't
not
like
like
Profit
this
and Lace?
one. No. This one is beyond ridiculous
Okay.
for where we're at in this show.
Times Orphan is an interesting one with the whole time displacement.
With
The O'Brien
Molly.
family. We get some
Yep.
quality time with them. The sound of her voice, which
Oh,
again is another solid hour of sci-fi. This one doesn't get talked about enough.
it
Um,
doesn't. And this, when I remember the first time I watched this, and I was just hit with that revelation at the end, because literally you're just learning about this character through the sound of her voice. And it's a bottle show too. It's like
yeah,
all on the Defiant. It's a budget saving episode, but man, this hits you emotionally.
I really love one as a production. Yeah, it hits you. It's again more character study and development, and because I
Hmm.
really love Chief O'Brien sums it up at the end with his speech talking about how the war has changed us. We've grown apart. And so yes, it's a great moment because I wanted to almost bring it up when we were talking about In the Pale Moonlight, and you were talking about we're seeing characters react. It's like, yes, we've seen characters change. And
Hmm.
here he is giving voice which is like, that's normal life. It's like, yeah, this stuff is having an effect on us. This ain't no light stuff. This is life changing, personality changing stuff. And it's kind of like that. Yeah, we need to do, it's going to happen to all of us, no matter what, but we got to get back to our relationships, trying to
Yep.
get back to who we are. And we drifted apart. Things happen. Yeah, that's that's the nature of life. So I love that commentary, especially because here we are, we're wrapping, we're getting about to wrap up season 6, and it's not, and we know we're in the calendar as we're watching. It's like, okay, yep, you're getting towards the end. Season 7, it's knowing it's going to be the end. Like you went into season 7 knowing it's going to be the end, so it's kind of like, okay, we're going to start bracing ourselves for the end of the road. But before that, of course, they do hit us with a shock with the season 6 finale, Tears of the Prophets,
Oh my
which
God.
is just drama on drama on drama on drama. Jadzia or Terry Farrell is that's a weird story, which kind of gets touched on a little bit uh,
Right.
in the documentary. Um, but essentially, it sounds like Terry Farrell wanted a little bit more. They weren't trying to give it up. She made the decision to leave, and they killed her off the show, hitting us with a gut punch at the end of season 6, and Cisco leaving the station, taking the baseball, which we know is a crucial icon.
Yeah, it's I remember this so well, and with the rewatch, and it's a very depressing episode. Like the characters are depressed in it, like the war's not going well, all this stuff happens. Jadzia dies, and then you have Cisco leave during one of the most crucial points in the war.
Right.
And I remember back in the day when I first saw this, I'm like, I don't know how this next season is going to go, the last season. I mean, it's one of those finales. I don't want to say it's like best of both worlds level, but it's up there because it's so ambiguous to the future. You're like, I have no idea how part 2 of this is going to play out,
Right.
because you're like, how do they come back from this?
It's it's great television to be able to leave you on a the definition of cliffhanger,
Yep.
and especially in the day when you don't have all the information and there's no way to get all the information. Like, no,
Again, we're talking about 1998. Like,
you had to tune in 3 months later,
right?
and don't miss it because you don't know when you were going to get the chance to again, possibly. Like this
It
was how it was.
it was a time in television history that sometimes I wish we could go back to, just because I'm sick of getting like spoilers and like whole seasons dropping at once. Like sometimes I get sick of that.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I will say this about season 7: it is to me one of the strongest endings, but also one of the weaker seasons. As a
Okay.
season 7, a little bit feels like in the beginning or in the middle, a little dragged out.
Mm-hmm.
The beginning gets carried along because we have the introduction of Esri Dax,
Right.
and you get some of that. But season 7 feels a little like, okay, season 7 feels like we got 26 episodes to fill. We need to fill some. And while some of those are fun and great, it's some fun times. Like you get Take Me Out to the Hollow Suite. That is just a fun episode.
Yes.
Baseball being played, like fun. You get was Treachery and Faith in the Great River. Wayoon gets killed again. You get some, and you
I think the challenge of it was because Terry Farrell left the show and they still wanted to have Dax in some capacity. You have one of the most unique things in Star Trek where not only is this the final season, but you have to also bring enough characterization to a whole new main cast member in your final season.
yeah trying to
So,
wrap up all of the stuff while introducing something new. Yeah, hard.
and I don't envy any of the writers who had to map out this season, because I think to your point, that's where a little bit of that weakness comes from, is because you're trying to you're trying to establish a whole new character while trying to wrap up a show and also give them a satisfying conclusion. Like it's I know a lot of fans are polarized about Ezri Dax, but I think Nicole DeBoer did a great job with her.
Yeah.
and with what she was having. And at the end of the day, I really do like Ezri's character. I just hate that it had to come at the cost of ending Jadzia's life.
I'm not a big fan of the Esri specific episodes
Sure.
but like I said, it's not because I Nicole's performance is fine. I'm not mad at the character. It's just one, I don't care. Like the seventh season, as you said, you're introducing a new character this late in the game
Hmm.
with an already, as we have talked about before, expansive roster of characters. I don't care. If we had more time with her, I might care about her a little bit more. And especially because, yes, it was at the expense of a beloved and heavy hitter. It's the heavy hitter character for the show. And so, yeah, those episodes. It's like I don't care. And
Yeah.
it's like it's not the bad. It's just I don't care. And
And
they
not my favorite, the whole Worf Dr. Bashir weird love
it
triangle.
was
Not
right
really a fan of that.
because it was like it made sense earlier.
Right.
It worked itself out, and now we're back into it. And it was handled funky. Like, come on, Worf.
And
Come on, man.
I wasn't a fan of, like, Bashir still getting Dax at the end, because it's like he pursued Jadzia for so long, and it's a weird. I'm not the biggest fan of all of that.
Right.
So I definitely see your point to, like, season 7 is a little bit weaker,
Yeah.
but the big finale arc, this was the commercials were everywhere. It's like the final episodes.
Before you go there, though,
Okay, okay.
what they did with the war before that, though, some will find problematic. It's great TV, but they got dark with it again because you had the whole Nog storyline,
Oh my god,
Siege
yeah.
and AR-556. Great television, great. But once again, the war is very like this is where Deep Space Nine can get justified in calling dark because generally the stuff with the war, yeah, they don't shy away from it at all. But that storyline that Nog gets with the siege, and then of course losing his leg, coming back, rehabbing from that, the whole thing with him being in Vic Fontaine's lounge, and then how that the aftermath of that led to the casino episode. Like once again, great how they play with it, but yet the war stuff
Yes.
here was dark. It was dark. It was dark. Just
Yeah,
yeah,
this
that needs
this
to be
this was one of the darker episodes, and to see the war on the front lines like this on the ground, which you're not expecting in, like, a space war battle. It
haven't
just
been
it
there. Especially since they haven't been showing that. Like you weren't getting that. We've had a couple encounters, but you weren't getting it heavy like that.
it really shows the depth of war in Star Trek.
And then which is Covenant, which is interesting as a '90s episode with Ducat being, it's the pirates, which we call it to be a crucial thing, but it's very much so a '90s episode. This I feel like this kind of stuff is in the news all the time. I mean, because you're having the different shootings and incidents with cults were huge in
Cult
the '90s, and
Cults
so
were big in the 90s. Yeah.
it's so '90s. You had as once again only a Paper Moon, Nog, and the PTSD from the siege. Great, it's not right after. It is an episode later. So once again, it's that way. It's like they picked it up. It's not immediate. It takes some time. Put it down. He was gone. Other things were going on. Let's see what you got. Emperor's New Cloak. Yeah. You get a couple
Another
of
mirror universe, but also
Number Mirrors.
combined with a Ferengi, not the
Yeah.
best.
You get a couple of Esri episodes. You do get the one of the final what the holodeck. Whew, couldn't find the word for a
Yes.
second.
Hollow Suite.
How
Yeah.
sweet. The bada bing, which is Ocean's 7-11 kind of plot. What I love about this episode
Hmm.
is it's the final part of what I talked about. This. They brought up some of that racism again in this, simply with the great question of, okay, yeah, we got this 1940s lounge. Everybody's acting like it was all easy peasy. I wouldn't have been welcome back then. I'm a little uneasy with that. And the conversation between Cisco and Cassidy about that,
Yes.
where
Yes.
and it's not just a simply like you're wrong, you're right, I'm right, you're wrong. But it's like you can look at it this way, valid. You can also look at it this way, very valid. whatever you choose to do is what you choose to do. Beautiful, because it's a beautiful way to like, yes, it's an issue. Bring it up, but it's not something that's like we get to beat you over the head with it. We had the moment, we were done in a beautiful, classy way.
I will say one of the most classy shots in this
Oh,
whole series is
oh,
them walking down the promenade
that
in.
is a bad shot. Bad shot.
Oh
This
my god!
with the taking
And
the cufflinks
they do the stereotypical slow mo, but my god, do they look
and,
fine?
and Dennis McCarthy with the music too in that episode. Yeah,
Yes,
that's a
yes.
fun one. But of course, you need that fun stuff because yeah, this final arc is just we're gonna do what we're gonna do. We're gonna shift into high gear and close this bad boy out
Mm-hmm.
and tackle it all. And one of the amazing things here is because there are so many threads and storylines these last couple episodes deal with. And yes, I remember just like you the promos how like yes,
They're
we've
like
got
the 9-part series finale. I mean,
right
they were promoting the hell out of this.
all over. It was
This
a
was
big
must watch
deal.
television.
The TV shows didn't do this because even as serialized as DS9 is, it's once again still very episodic. And yes, it's a big deal that these more than 3 episodes will be connected in a way to wrap this story up.
Nine episodes.
Just here's the crazy thing. Here's the crazy thing. In today's day and age, that's a season.
That's a season. I know. It's not
Literally,
great.
what was teased as the final, we're winding it down, we're wrapping it up. Big promo effort would literally be looked at as that's one season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna pull
It's
a little out. Hey, Steven. But once again, like what we talk about, there's layers, there's threads, there is so much, and DS9 lands the plane, like to the point where because I forget it was the episode where they learned that I was watching the other day, where they learned that Odo is carrying the disease. They're getting ready to go help the
yes.
Cardassian rebellion. Most Star Trek has the A and B plot. You have your A plot, which is your main story,
Mm-hmm.
B plot, which is a secondary story. This episode had 5 plots in it,
Mm-hmm.
and not one seemed shorted. Everything like it. You hit these; they are moving fast, but they are like it's just hitting it all. It is all. It is a train just running, picking up speed, getting ready to just blast off, and it's just like edge of your seat thrill. Like my god,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
literally in these episodes, we just talked about the problems we had with a new character being introduced, right? Literally, the start of these episodes kicks off with a brand new race
Mm-hmm.
being introduced in the most badass way possible by literally destroying the Defiant, Cisco's beloved ship, like it was nothing, tossing it out like yesterday's trash, changing up the war, which was already going bad, and now
And
looks
now it's worse.
and now
Yeah.
it's worse, which sets
The
off.
Breen were so good. And I'll just say for a future episode, I like how they come back. But no, I mean this yeah, like it's almost like the writers were like, how can we make these characters suffer more? Like it was a little sadistic, it felt like at times, but it makes the victory that much sweeter.
Well, it's funny how much of a World War II allegory it is because when you really look at the history, like World War II was like we were pretty close to losing it ourselves back then.
Yep.
And so when you learn how much of an allegory this is to World War II, it's like it's like yeah, but it just takes that one moment to do that upswing,
Mm-hmm.
and to get back. But yeah, the way they closed out this show between the changeling disease, the Klingon changing leadership once again in a more dramatic fashion with the fight and
Mm-hmm.
Gowron being killed by Worf. Interesting conclusion to their story from back in TNG. To
Like total full circle.
total full
And
circle.
man, did it feel good.
Oh, it was so good. The end of Section 31, Cisco's relationship with Cassidy. Yeah, the Romulans and Federation not being able to participate in the war until we get this weapon discovered. To then the Cardassians aren't happy. They're feeling occupied. They're not feeling this partnership with the Dominion. You got a full blown rebellion. You got Dukat with the full blown, Pa race religious cult teaming up with who I can't believe it's taking us this long to talk to. We have to talk about
Well,
Wow
Kai Wynn.
Kai Wynn.
I hate her so much, but god damn it, is she like one of the most well acted. Oh, every time she's on screen, she just pisses me off.
Can't
Yeah,
stand. Kids cover ears. She's one of the most nastiest bitches ever to grace the TV, but it's in a way that it's just like I can't. Like my God, I in the most appropriate way possible because you acted it so well. I hate
yeah.
you, this character.
It's what Deep Space Nine does. It's like you love to hate them because they're just so well acted and written, and the situations are just so like,
Yeah,
ooh,
to see the tension over these 7 seasons between to see she's been this power hungry. She's been looking for this. She's manipulative. She's like to where it culminates to she's trying to become essentially the leader of an anti cult to a cult that's anti to the Bajoran prophets and the team up with her and Dakar and all that. It's just
and
it's
then like an episode like Extreme Measures where we're like so close to the end of the series and we still get a wrap up on Section 31 kind of, and like the way that they structured this finale arc, like everything gets closure.
oh yeah.
And that is so rare, I feel, in like modern shows with these compressed seasons. Because not everything gets closure and some things get missed on.
Well, everything that needed closure got closure.
Yes, yes,
Because there's a lot of things they did leave open or kind of just leave. Yet there's life after this, but everything that needed closure, the specific
yes.
things we dealt with, got closure. And yeah, it's the series finale. What you leave behind.
It's it's one of, I think, the greatest Star Trek series finales. And I love All Good Things, but the way that this series ends, like it just feels like the whole theme that we've been talking about, it just feels like this is how life just happens. It's
And life
not
goes
gonna,
on.
life goes on. And the station will be there. And like we see in Lower Decks, Kira's still there. Like things move on, like life goes on. And it's so fitting that the final shot of this show is Jake and Kira because they are two of the biggest core, like, Jake also his dad, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean. They've been there from the beginning, and it's so fitting that it's Kira comforting Jake because he's just searching for his dad, and it's like, God dang, this show. It just it
It's an interesting turn to go from the visitor to where we see a younger Jake Sisko lose his father and literally spend the rest of his life to get him
Yep.
back. To
And,
literally, he is in the same position at the end of the show, a little older, a little more mature.
right.
You can only assume he's a little more comfortable with it.
But it
But
makes you wonder, like, how much of that is
what
going to pass.
they leave it in a way that's like, could
It could.
it, could it not? And it's beautiful. It's the once again Dennis McCarthy and his score with this. It's beautiful. The way you wrap up all the stories in a way that's not just wrapped up, but wrapped up and moving on. Chief O'Brien moving back to Earth with the family to take
Yep.
up a position. Worf going on to, become a diplomat for the Klingon Empire. Odo going back to, to
To the Great Link.
Great Lake to heal them and to be with his people, which we see pay off. Like it is a beautiful send off, and it's just like, yeah, life goes on, and the fact that they managed to land the plane, and they had a big ass plane to land, and they landed it
Yeah.
well. It's
Yeah.
just is a testament to the show. I could still go on about this, but we've been here for 3 hours already. We gotta
This
handle some business.
and we've got some homework,
We
but
got some,
I will say we only went on this long because it's a show that means so much to both of us and because of the quality.
it's there. The material is there. Like this show once again, Star Trek impacting beyond the franchise. Like this show is one of the ones that literally changed television.
Mm-hmm.
There is no one show you can pinpoint. Like, yes, we're doing these big elongated arcs because of this one show. Like it was part of a '90s trend, but Deep Space Nine was one of the forefathers and at the front of that, leading that pack of changing television storytelling. Because you can literally see the difference in like sitcoms, for example. You can literally see the difference of mid '90s sitcoms would start to do some of that stuff.
Right,
Start
right.
start to do a little more character development or carrying threads through, or and that's because of a show like Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Woo, Bubba. Okay, so
I don't think there's any question. I think your captain is Cisco. Are we?
hell yes.
I mean, Cisco is replacing Kirk.
Yeah,
Let's be
yeah.
real.
And he ain't going to work. Cisco really is the best of both worlds. Like he
Yes,
gives you the diplomatic stuff that Picard would give you, but then yeah, he gives you that cowboy gunslinger that Kirk will give you, and has shown he'd go a little further than Kirk. So yeah, you gonna get the gambit from Cisco.
I am sticking with Picard.
Okay, okay,
Don't get
okay.
me wrong, I love Cisco, but for right now, I'm sticking with Picard as the captain. First officer. We both had Riker.
I'm keeping right now. I'm. But also I'm thinking I'm like Cisco for me. I'm looking like Cisco and Riker. That's an interesting combo. But right now,
But if I put Kira on my list, Picard and Kira, after what he went through with Ro,
that'd
are
be
you kidding me?
that'd be interesting because especially since Roe was supposed to be,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
I think I might also stick with Riker.
Okay, science officer. We both had Spock.
I'm sticking with
Yeah.
Spock. No offense to Jadzia. Love Jadzia.
Engineer. This was where you might be.
I am putting down O'Brien.
Okay. Okay.
O'Brien unseat Scotty for me. I'm not taking that back.
Not mad that O'Brien, who has joked about has
He's
become one of the most important
he's
men.
earned that.
Right. He's become
He's
one of the
earned
most
that
important
shit.
men in Star Trek. He's got a statue,
Yes,
according to
yes,
Lower Decks. So I'm not mad at that. CMO, you sticking with Crusher?
yes. For now,
Yeah, Bashir is interesting. I'm not mad. One of the things also liked about DS9 is it didn't play with the typical you're this position, you're this position, you're this position, you're this position. You kind of
correct.
had an interesting mix and a more of a free flow with the characters. But yeah, now I'm gonna stick with McCoy. Helmsman. I like Dax here.
I was gonna say the same because she has that dual role where I may not stick her for science because Spock, but she flew that Defiant pretty damn well. So I think I sorry, Sulu.
Okay, we on the same page there.
All right. I like
Tactical
that.
ops. Tactical ops. Sticking with data.
Yeah, because who was it? I mean, it was Worf
It was
later.
war. was also Jadzia sometimes. Hell, it was
That's
also
true.
Kira. Reddington did it. It's like Deep Space Nine played. Deep Space Nine gave you some flexibility in terms of who did what, which is what I also enjoyed though, because it's just like we do what needs to be done to
Yeah.
get the job done.
Yeah, I think I'll stick with Data too. God, this is hard because I know what's coming up, and it's like I want the best of the best. You know what I mean?
Right. Security.
Oh, I am replacing Worf with Odo for
I'm
this
not mad. I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you. I'm just
because
looking, and it's like I need Worf somewhere, but I don't know.
I mean I like Worf, but he's off my list for now. Sorry. I love Odo. Odo. We didn't talk enough about him, but I really like his character
Actually, you know what I'm going to do here? I'm with you there. I'm going to have Odo as chief of security. I'm going to replace my first officer
with Worf.
with Worf.
Oh, smart.
This Cisco's, and it's primarily also because I have Cisco as captain. I really enjoyed the relationship because we got the Worf who changed back
Mm,
to Red. I liked the relationship that Cisco and Worf had, and Worf was the first officer. Pretty interesting, and because yeah, I like Odo as security. Yeah, Worf going in as first officer because
I
it's
like that for you. I
yeah.
like that for you. I'm gonna stick with Picard Riker for now. Yeah.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see how that sticks. But right now, yeah, I liked it. Okay, come on.
Comms, like this is tough because there's not really like communications.
Nog did fill in sometimes, but nah, yeah, I'm gonna stick with Uhura. That's
Yeah, she's classic.
yeah,
Now Rando utility.
utility player.
There is so much Rando we could put here above
Oh,
Wesley.
oh, I am leaning Garrick here just because Garrick as a
Oh
utility
my god.
character
It's like you're reading my mind.
because that's one of the fun things like the way they played with him throughout the show like just this we don't this and because you never got the full answer we got hints but just this guy who could whatever you need in a particular
Double
situation
agent, kind
triple
of.
I,
See, and then he fits the tinker, tenor, spy. Yeah, he fits all that. I like that for both of us, Garrett.
and I loved his arc of the whole expelled comrade because we don't exactly know what but essentially became
But I
being here
want to reclaim my homeland. Yes,
beautiful
yes.
beautiful beautiful arc okay we get the
We
crews
have some crossover.
the crews are shaping up
They're shifting.
it's gonna get interesting
Yep.
okay I'm
Yep.
locked in there okay so here we go show we both have TNG number one TOS number two you already know where I'm going with this and it's not going to change Deep Space Nine is number one
So you
TNG
had so your rank is now DS9,
TNG TOS.
TNG, TOS. Um, shoot. I might have to do the same.
Oh,
It
that
this might change in the future, but for right now, I think we're pretty aligned.
okay. See, let me say, I can appreciate that about you because, like, as much as we know your love and appreciation of TNG, to be able to recognize like just the product in terms of the franchise, and it's not taken away from TNG, but just what they were able to do
No,
is
the
just
the elevation of the elevation of Star Trek because of Deep Space Nine is monumental. Star Trek was not the same after Deep Space Nine.
facts, facts.
Like this was the show.
Already, the hero ship. We both had D, and then the OG 1701. I think I wait. No, I had AD 1701. You had DA 1701, right? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I love the Defiant, but she ain't my baby. It's the A, it's the Defiant, it's D, and then the 1701 OG.
One more time.
Defiant comes in essentially at number two. Still
Okay.
sticking with my Constitution refit A is number one.
A, right.
Defiant, give me the good old D, and then the 1701.
All right. Um, and then I had, sorry, I'm like typing this in real time and I can't type. Uh, no, and D, and then OG 1701. And then what did I have?
You had DA 1701.
Oh, DA 1701. I'm gonna say D Defiant, A, and then OG.
Okay. Okay. I'm mad at it. She's slipping a little low for my
Yeah.
taste, but I'm not mad at it. And then finally, what we can add on to with this one is the theme. You have the TNG theme,
Oh
TOS
yeah.
theme, and then DS9 theme, which is one of the things I also, because you had, once again, precedent from what we've seen Lower Decks do.
Right.
The precedent of in season four, like the season one through season three theme is it's a solo trumpet versus season four, it becomes the full orchestra, with the life and the things have changed at the station.
Right.
Beautiful theme. I'll shock you here though. TNG is still the theme. Give me DS9 TOS.
Uh, I think I am with you on that because I hear that swell of the TNG theme and it does it for me every time.
Oh, beautiful crescendo. Beautiful crescendo.
Yes,
But
yes.
that TNG theme is just so Star Trek. I don't know if anything's gonna take that off for me. But yeah, once again, I can't wait till we get to the movies after Voyager because the work Dennis McCarthy did in its full will be explored there. Beautiful
Yes.
stuff. Okay, I think that's all we need to update right now. Am
I
I
think
correct?
that's it.
Okay.
We'll do
Woo!
uniform. We'll rank uniforms like one of the last things because there's so many uniforms. It's ridiculous.
Actually, yeah.
We'll do
Oh,
that later. We don't have to mess with that now.
woo! Final
Yeah.
thought.
I
Final.
I mean, if you don't know our position on D Space Nine now, I don't know what you're doing with the last 3 hours of your life. But thank you. No, D Space Nine is phenomenal. Um, but man, I love Voyager and Enterprise, and we'll definitely get to those. And it like trying to rank these is like trying to like rank your children. It sucks because you love them all for different reasons. But as a whole, D Space Nine just takes Star Trek to like that next level.
It's
And it does so many damn good things. And I think that's why over the years you've seen people, before we got the Kelvinverse movies, like, when are we going to get a D Space Nine movie? When are we going to get, like, because people want it to continue. What happened to the Cisco? We don't know.
what? Spoiler alert. Deep Space Nine has the best stuff out there to be picked up for a full before they did Picard season three and we got Legacy and it's I mean and we were hoping for Legacy.
Right.
The best hanging thread out there right now is Cisco because of what we've seen so far the comics do, which is a great run. But literally because
Yes.
with that character,
Yes.
you can do anything.
Anything. Right. And it's left open in such a spectacular fashion. And that's the great thing about his position as like a timeless prophet, literally non-linear time.
Timeless God. He's a timeless God. As he
He
said in the
can come
finale,
back anytime.
if,
Anytime
if,
Avery Brooks wants to be, hey, I want to be back in it.
It could be 10 years from now. It could be yesterday. Like, my God, like you can do anything with that character.
But I will say I'm not mad at what the comics are doing because
No,
it's
no,
it's giving me what
it's
I
badass.
want from
It's
that.
badass. It's badass.
Yeah,
But yeah, this
yeah,
for its piece as a whole, Deep Space Nine, it's the pinnacle of Trek. And then when you add in, which we will really fully be able to do when we talk about the movie
yes,
era esque, because it's going to be that everything encompassing. It's a special time in Trek, and Deep Space Nine is just the pinnacle. I think it's the to me it's the blueprint. It's the
yeah,
blueprint. If they could find a way to get back to some of the things they did, we'd be in for a good ride. But yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's Star Trek grown up, special place. Shout out to the Cisco. Um, Thank you. If you've made it this far, thank you. Like, share,
Yes, thank you.
subscribe. You are a real Trekkie. We appreciate you. If somehow you've made it this far and you are not, thank you. Definitely check out those
Yeah, I
great.
don't know what you're doing. Like your
Yeah.
next week better be
Turn,
binging some D Space Nine.
turn this off now and then go turn on In the Pale Moonlight. Save the visitor or you
Yes,
want a good cry. But yes, go
I'm
turn
gonna
on.
be I'm gonna be watching that remastered Sacrifice of Angels.
I
So
might pull it up on YouTube myself because I am in that mood. But, sir, once again, it has been a pleasure. Thank
absolutely
you. Next up, we are going
to the Delta Quadrant.
to Delta Quadrant, the Bridge of the Intrepid class. That's right, the USS Voyager.
Yes,
Star Trek Voyager
yes,
is up next. That's going to be an interesting one.
because I
Until
love.
next time.
All
Until
right.
next time. Live long and prosper.
Bye, everyone. See you.